he's innocent, and it's up to the state to bring evidence and a jury to decide if that's different.
Essentially convicted in the media. You don't have to read but a few articles to see how negative they are about him. He has a right to have this information withheld, brought out in public, so that people can see it's not this neat little package. So people can start to wonder if Brian's innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent.
They call it the August effect. A quiet pull, a heart's compass, finding its gravitation. A promise whispered to the future. Sunrise paints the window pane a hazy gold. A story in my chest that's waiting to unfold. Used to trace the lines of maps I'd never seen. Now the greenest pasture grows from deep within. Letting go of every anchor, every chain, washing off the dust in cool September rain. This is the freedom, wild and new, the future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, the sky of blue. This is the promise coming true. The road ahead is unwritten, vast and wide. No need to run, no reason left to hide. Every step a choice, every breath my own. On this open field of chances I have sown. This is the freedom, wild and new. The future calling, breaking through. A heart's true north, a sky of blue. This is a prominent truth. The August effect, I understand it now. It's the faith you find somehow. The promise coming true for you. The greenest pasture for you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Phoenix, and this is Phoenix Talks, and this is where this community comes together to look for truth, facts, and evidence. That's the reason why we're all here, right? You know, I have taken so much time to dive into the interviews, into the redacted information released to the public, crime scene photos, even those that have been scrubbed that I was able to save. Tons of interviews. And we're going to get into yet more interviews today. We're going to be talking about Dr. Turvey. His latest interview just a few hours ago. Absolutely impressive. Absolutely. And am I going to talk about the article that I was interviewed for that they put out? Absolutely, I'm going to talk about it. Because now it's on Yahoo, and now it's on, I think it's the Tab, and a couple others scheduled. So I will be talking about that. Don't go away. But I did release a public statement in regards to the article that was written about Kohberger. And for anyone who does not know what's happening, I'm going to give you the rundown. If you go to my page, I put, especially in my post, I put a public statement out that you can go and read for yourself. If you have any comments, go there. And I have publicly stated a long spiel if you read the article. And one thing I do want to note publicly, I will honestly say that the last part of this article was awful. Absolutely awful. Because I understand and I empathize with the family, but I also understand from experience and what it's like to be in the criminal court system, what it's like to be accused of something and no, you didn't do it. You're innocent. And the writer of this article clearly believes that many of the women who communicate with or publicly that discuss Koberger are focused on him, and they may not even be considering how it affects families, the victims' families. And the writer basically, in my opinion, argues those families deserve privacy, quiet, and relief, but yet they are all over social media, on the television, still pushing a narrative. And remember, Justice for All was started so that the truth could be put out there. Court records, crime scene photos, FBI reports, expert reports. Because, see, I'm not nilly-willy like some people. All right? And the writer didn't leave that with a neutral statement. It contained, in my opinion, criticism and assumptions that were never discussed. And I have the recording, folks. Yes, I recorded the interview. And I will say this publicly. In my opinion, the writer is accusing me and others of prioritizing Koberger over the victim's family, which is so wrong. So wrong. That's what I feel expressed in that writing. And then obviously using the word lofty. Okay? There is no loyalty here in my eyes except for justice. And if you think blindly supporting a man convicted of 4 terrible murders, if you think that that's what I'm doing, you're totally wrong. Totally wrong. We are here to uncover the truth and make sure justice was served. Who else is going to do it? Who else is going to do it? And to even group me together with somebody who is clearly feels differently. And like I said, there is no romantic interest here. Very clear. And yes, I have the recording. I told her that I am a veteran, a U.S. veteran. And how could they do a hit piece on a veteran? Now, you all can go and you can check out the article. You can write the writer. All you have to do is go right to U.S. Daily Mail. They've lost my subscription for sure. And she quoted everything I said verbatim, except for what she threw in there. I don't know what her agenda was, but you can go and you can click on, obviously, and you can get her email because it's right there for everyone to see. And you can write or make a comment on how you feel about this piece. Everyone's voice can be heard, even the ones leaving all the hateful comments. Too bad they don't know me. It's their loss. Because if this was their brother, their sister, their uncle, their aunt, their mother, their father, their child, they would be messaging me just like when I did the self-defense case in Ohio. Dude was innocent. The jury found him not guilty. And yes, I covered it. And yes, I talked to the family. Yes, the jury found the guy not guilty. All right, so let's get into this. Hello, everybody. Caleb, our trusty mod, welcome in. Happy Wednesday. Donna Rosa, Inked Mama, good to see ya. Good to see you guys. Hey, Tammy, good to see you back. Good to see you here. I really appreciate your support. You guys have got my support. Inked Mama, did someone accuse you of being in love with BK? How odd. Well, the Daily Mail interviewed me for a piece and wanted to talk about Brian Koberger's innocence. You know, she did her homework. She watched TikTok videos, she watched YouTube, she quoted. And for those of you who have not seen the article or not able to access the article, this article is all over the place now. It is all over the place. And report truth about Brian Koberger's lovesick women. This was an article that was done. Let me grab the original article in 2023. Okay. Same article, same girl. They used the first time. And let me just grab it. What was her name again? What was her article? What was her name? Here it is. Brittany Hislop. All right. Let me just pull this up real quick and then I'll show you. So wild. Brittany Hislop. She's a Kentucky woman. Now, she is over there confessing her love for Brian Koberger. That's all fine and dandy. That's her issue. No comment. But when you link an old article and bring in here it is. That was Fox. Daily Mail did a piece too. Hold on, let me pull it. Daily Mail. Lovesick. This was the one in 2023. Okay. February 4th, 2023. A Kentucky woman reveals she is lovesick over Brian Koberger. She writes him basically every day. She wants to have whatever. She wants to fulfill all these things. And she sends all these provocative pictures and yada, yada, yada. And of course, they've said some pretty nasty things about her. And you have to read the article to understand. There's a big old long love letter to Koberger. She's put all that public and a mire and all that stuff. Okay, there was 0 comments on this article. But if you go back to the article that was written recently, all they've done, all this writer looks like they've done, is throw in the first top portion. And then they start mentioning me here. Phoenix, a 56-year-old true crime content creator, is one such person. She's already stuck me into that lovesick women category, which is wrong. So wrong. All right? And you guys know me better than this. All right? So wrong. And she has covered the Idaho murders extensively on social media. And in her mind, Koberger's petition for a retrial had been a long time coming. Well, we've all been waiting for this here. There's tons of people who have been waiting for this. It wasn't what does it say? It wasn't a surprise to many of us, she told Daily Mail. And that's exactly what I said, word for word. I don't think any of us in the true crime community were really shocked. We were waiting for it. Waiting because she and thousands like her have been championing the killer, who has generated a huge and predominantly female fan base on social media, in Facebook groups viewed by Daily Mail and the mailbags letters sent to the Idaho prison in which he is incarcerated. Now, I have never championed any killer. I've been accused of being a champion. If anything, I'm standing here for justice. As I have done so for many other people. Insert a picture. And right below this is the report about Brian Koberger's lovesick women. Okay? Then Phoenix view of Koberger case. She says, basically, I've adapted Phoenix for online presence, and I've been following the Idaho college student murder since it began, but she didn't fully believe. She says she fully didn't believe that Koberger was innocent until the documents related to the case were unsealed and she could review them for herself. I've been following it since day one, she said. I watched all the court hearings. I've read all the court filings and all the expert affidavits, DNA related evidence, timelines, all the crime scene photos, even the ones they redacted. And I realized this dude is probably innocent. Since Phoenix came to that conclusion over a year ago, she's devoted hundreds of videos across YouTube and TikTok, where she is collectively following a nearly 50,000 to making a case for Koberger's innocence. Now, I've even created a website, Justice for All, shout out to us, where she hosts a database for all the court documents, photos, and transcripts related to the Idaho college students' murders case. Thousands of pages of evidence, and according to investigators, are proof of Koberger's guilt, are, to Phoenix, proof of just the opposite. Now, this really ticked me off. It really did. The choice of words here, a couple of jabs and choice of words. And it's a gospel she preaches so that her followers can come to the realization that he could probably be innocent as well. What? All I've done is show you the documents. I allowed you to come to your own conclusion. Phoenix said, in cases like this, in my opinion, they don't go to the next step. They just don't. I think the investigation can be tunnel vision. Sometimes they get the wrong person. Okay, that's legit. That is legit. Here's the question. If there are people out there that know that he is guilty and they know exactly how they found him to be guilty, show the public. Show the public, people. Put a challenge out there, even for Vivian. I'm going to put a challenge out there. If you know how he's so guilty and he did this crime, then simply show up. Step up to the plate and show us. Tell us. Then we can put this debate to rest. And maybe we'll even stop talking about this case. Show us the facts. Because the math ain't mathing up. And then they go on to say that something just didn't feel right. Nothing was adding up. The body cams that were released, the witness statements, the timeline, the DNA evidence, the experts' affidavits, something just really didn't seem right. Then they go to show this other woman and all the online groups in defense of Koberger from the same former. Oh, here it is. Sorry, it had to load. There's 889 comments underneath this article from 2023. They're not so nice. Absolutely not so nice. But let me just say this. Yeah, there's 866 comments. This is from the same article. You can go and read this article back in 2023, and you can go back over to the article piece that they just wrote a few days ago. All right? Well, it came out yesterday, but And then they say that this Kentucky woman has claimed he's the perfect man for her, yada, yada, yada. And you can go read the article. And then they go and they explain some deranged type of love for murderers. Okay? The psychology of criminal attraction. Yeah, I see the trolls. Now, they're saying that this psychology, most people hear it and picture unstable people writing love letters to killers, tabloid fodder, and more. And they're saying that this is some neurological disease, okay? And I have never been diagnosed with any hysterobiphilia. I have no sexual or romantic attraction to Brian Koberger. And I don't sit all day and write him, and I don't even send money. Okay? To categorize me in this category is diagnosing me, which this writer is not a doctor. They have made this look like, and now it's libel. It's not just defamation, it's libel. It is in writing, which is disgusting. And then they go on to say it's like a Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. And then they talk about Luigi and they throw in Menendez brothers and Charles Manson and all this other shit. And then the supporters who defend Koberger in online posts. So now they're saying not only am I, but you are falling under this psychological issue, this neurological issue. Okay? Yeah, I must be close. I'm pissing somebody off, obviously. And then they go into this thing, and then Dave Wilson, they paraphrase for Dave Wilson, which I've never talked to MSN Australia. I've never talked to Tab Online. I've never talked to Yahoo News. And then he goes and explains the reason behind it. And then they throw another jab in here at me. Phoenix insists that her defense of Koberger is not motivated by romantic feelings or the need for fame. As I stated, she just wants him to have what she sees as a chance for a fair trial. Well, you people aren't making it very easy for anyone to have a fair trial, period. Clearly. I mean, have you seen all the articles they've written in the last few days since he filed the PCR? Back into the media it goes. We're talking about a death penalty case, she said, me. And we've seen this over and over where innocent people are pigeonholed to the plea deal. Has anybody ever heard of the Innocence Project or the book Frame that we're reading, Centurion Ministries? Well, if you haven't heard of it, yes, there is something called the Innocent Project. And people, yes, since 1992, have exonerated more than 250 people. It happens. They spent over 3,800 years wrongfully incarcerated. Learn more about the organization. Learn more about things you don't know of. Peter Newfield and Barry Scheck, the Innocence Project was started. And it's not just about criminal justice reform. It's about using DNA and other scientific advancements to prove wrongful conviction, not junk science, not experts that want to taint the science to get the outcomes that prosecutors want. I could go on and on. I definitely could. But go and learn about the Innocent Project. Go and learn about the people who have been wrongfully accused. And then come back and have a discussion. Let's have a logical, unheated discussion, and you can actually see what I put in this article. She quoted me word for word accurately, but all the interjections that she made about me was wrong. What many might view as blind and unacceptable allegiance to a man convicted of 4 heinous murders is to Phoenix a lofty pursuit of justice and truth. Show me the proof he's guilty. Show me the proof, because you know what? Go over to Justice for All. Go over to the COI. Go to Justice for All. Go look at the FBI reports. Go watch some other experts making the rounds, talking about all the wrongdoing in this case. Then come back and say it's just a lofty pursuit of truth and justice. The public deserves transparency. We deserve a trial. He deserves a fair trial. And we get to hear the evidence because we, the public, do. But the last little hit she took on me and the jab, she says, came all from her. It doesn't seem to occur to Phoenix, nor to the thousands of women who write and post about Kohberger, that the families of his victims may want and indeed deserve peace. That's where she did me dirty. And what did I say about those victims not too long ago in my public statement? I put that right after my interview. Why did I do that? Because I had a feeling 6 days ago they were going to twist my words. And this is exactly what I wrote 6 days ago. This is exactly what I told her. As the creator of Phoenix Talks, I've spent a significant amount of time independently reviewing yada, 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 yada. My advocacy is not based on a personal loyalty to Brian Kohberger, nor is it intended to diminish the devastating loss of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan and their families. It is based on my belief that every criminal conviction must be supported by reliable, thorough, tested evidence and a process that can withstand meaningful public scrutiny. And that's exactly what I said. I said, I believe Brian Kohberger may be innocent. And I do not believe the publicly available evidence has eliminated reasonable questions about whether the correct person was held responsible, especially the unknown DNA, B, C, D, whatever, especially the fingerprints, especially a new clump of hair that was in the documents found by the defense, Matt Nodal, a clump of hair in a gray shirt in front of the washer and dryer that nobody collected. No testing on the Keystone Light cans, the DNA. No testing on DNA blood that was found in the house other than the victims. See, that's transparency. That's transparency. And what I want to do now is I want to go over to the interview that I talked about on my post a little earlier. And this is Crime and Justice. And Donna is amazing. And that's what all I'll say about that article. The individual knows what they did. Let's see if they'll do the right thing. One thing I know for sure is that when you do Phoenix dirty, I don't get even. I just tell the truth. So let's watch this. And what did I say it was on? Where'd it go? Where did it go? So hopefully you'll give that article writer some type of feedback, because you have that right. That is your constitutional right. Freedom of speech against the government. Be careful what you say. All right. So let's watch this. If you haven't seen this, I just watched it briefly. This is going to get good. Listen to what Dr. Turvey says. Has anybody watched this? Drop a 1. Drop a 1 if anybody has watched this with Dr. Turvey. I am keeping my eye on Dr. Turvey because he blew it wide open. You know, Cy Ray is one thing. Cy Ray's one thing, but Dr. Turvey, boy, and I've been following him for a while on social media. He actually likes quite a few of my videos, by the way. This, we're going to review this. I'm going to have some commentary. This is pretty powerful.
This is Crime and Justice. I'm Donna Rotuno. Brian Kohberger is jockeying to take back his guilty plea, saying it was hinged on false promises and blatant disinformation. The change of heart came after experts have publicly questioned the evidence post-plea deal. Back with me today is Dr. Brent Turvey, a crime scene analyst expert who was hired by the Kohberger defense team. I think in light of the fact that Brian Kohberger has filed paperwork under a post-conviction theory to withdraw his plea, I think this conversation is going to be enlightening, and I can't wait to get into it. Talk to me about how you felt when you heard that Mr. Kohberger had filed this petition to withdraw his plea, and what was your reaction when you first heard that news?
Well, there's a number of ways that I reacted to it, but my first initial reaction as a person, as somebody who works in the justice system and observes it, was relief. I was relieved, mainly because of the way of what he said in his filing. It was some important facts and details came out that really haven't been covered at all. I mean, I want to take a moment to talk to you like a person, like you're a human being. I'm a human, you're a human. We both have human emotions and have human responses to these things. And it's been, the word I would use is disgusting. It's been disgusting the way that most of the topics around this case have been talked about and shared and even ruminated and theorized over. And I'm grateful to be in this space with you because I know you're not like that. You're more of a facts and law, and that's how I prefer to meet this case, because it's more productive that way. So really great relief.
For sure.
Primarily because so many things happen in that plea that people have only speculated about and continue to speculate about. And the first one is that no one seems to be saying out loud, which is that Ann Taylor and her legal team were fired. They were just fired across the board. There's no getting away from that, what happened there.
When you say fired, you mean that when he filed his petition, he did it on his own. So therefore, he obviously didn't ask them to do it. And then he asked for other counsel to be appointed to him. So is that what you're referring to when you say fired?
I don't know how we can see it any other way. That's the other problem we have with this
No,
case.
I agree. That's just what I'm, that's what I'm asking. I agree with that. I just want to be clear so people understand. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, let me get your feedback. Yeah, I told you that a while ago. The only way that he would be able to do this is to file it on his own. He doesn't have any other attorney to file for him. She probably refused to do anything to help him further because remember, when I called Ann Taylor's office, I asked specifically, who can help Brian Kohberger? Who can help him file in any type of appeal, a PCR, some type of habeas corpus, right? Because he's being held. That's a whole different story. But remember, when I called, she says, no, we're not doing that. And then I asked, well, do you have anybody that you can refer, another attorney that can file something for him? And she flat out said no. There was never any indication, there was never anything that she was going to do, in my humble opinion, to help him. All right. So essentially, him filing his own documents, who knows, maybe he went down to the law library, learned what he needed to do on his own, had access to something, and he basically said, wait, all these documents coming out, what is going on? It lined up and it made sense. And maybe that she was the one that was being investigated. I don't know. We don't still know, but I'm sure we're going to find out soon enough. Dr. Turvey gives us enough information. He is very credible, guys. Let's listen to what he said. So essentially, I agree that he fired her.
For those of us who work these kinds of cases, I mean, I do investigative cases for law enforcement. I do cases for prosecutors, and then I also do cases for defense attorneys and civil attorneys. And then I also do post-conviction cases, quite a few of them, to review things done after the conviction has already occurred. And I think it's just interesting how people are tripping over themselves to try to describe this in another way, to try to give some leeway to what's happening or create some sort of intrigue or mystery about it. Koberger laid it out pretty clearly what the issues were. And that's so my sense is relief that he is actually able to speak for himself, as opposed to being suppressed by Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor no longer holds the privilege. The privilege is his, and he gets to decide what he wants to say. And that has not been true since the plea.
And didn't we talk about this several times on lives, where in order for him to have any moving forward, any progression, she would have to be out of the way? Remember when I said that I was trying to get in touch to give encouragement, to hang in there? Hopefully all these reports that, we found and that were released that don't show anything about you being connected. And I was told simply that you had to go through the gatekeeper, and that was Ann Taylor.
And that's the other thing. It goes, if you want, we can go right into what the plea is and what he claims if you want. But so my first reaction was relief, and now it seems like the real work might actually get done. Those are my sentiments.
Well, before we, and I definitely want to get into the plea, but before we do that, let me ask you this. So, for the regular person who has no exposure to the criminal justice system, who hasn't sat in courtrooms the way you have or I have, we watch Bryan Kohberger sit in a court, right? And we watch the judge ask Bryan Kohberger a series of questions that he responded to. And we also saw that Bryan Kohberger filled out a piece of paper that basically, said, I am pleading guilty of my own free will, and, I'm satisfied with my counsel. So talk to me a little bit about how now, he's going to say, I want to withdraw all of this. And let's kind of go through that in terms of the plea. And, because to me, Bryan Kohberger does not seem like a dumb guy, right? Like, we're seeing his filings, we're seeing what he's written. And I'm kind of wondering how we reconcile this idea that he is an intelligent person. He was college educated. He was a teacher. He was a teacher's assistant. He was taking classes. And now, now we're hearing that he has written things to the court that are intelligent. So talk to me about how we reconcile this idea that he got up before a court, said all these things, and now he's saying, wait, this wasn't right. Like, why did he wait until now to bring those things up rather than say, I'm not going to plead guilty in the first place?
I'll just say is this: anybody who's questioning this process has obviously never been a criminal defendant charged with murder.
Okay, so I've never been a criminal defendant charged with murder, but keep in mind, Donna is a defense attorney, and Dr. Turvey is a forensic criminologist, right? And he worked with Bryan Kohberger's defense team. So he's basically, the argument is Kohberger's guilty plea may not have been genuinely informed decision because, according to the PCR, the new position, and Turvey, his attorneys withheld important defense evidence and pressured him to accept the plea agreement. And Turvey is basically saying, I was there for some of this. I can corroborate this is what happened. What's important, what remains unproven, and what the interview overreaches. This is what we're looking at. Why Turvey felt relief. He no longer trusts Ann Taylor's defense team, ? I mean, he is interpreting the filing as showing that Koberger no longer trusts Ann Taylor. He believes that he was pressured into a guilty pleading. Claims he was not shown specific findings, especially expert findings, and claims he was told the plea could later be changed. Yeah, he goes on to say this. Listen.
And certainly not charged with capital murder. So second guessing this is kind of, it's one of those things that I find really unpalatable, because I've done this. I've worked probably 25, 30 death penalty cases in my career and testified in many of them. And what attorneys tell clients to do is shut up, don't make a face, don't respond, don't react, and above all, don't talk. Look straight ahead or take notes. That's the instruction given to every client, every defense client ever. All right. Whether or not they take that advice is something else. So from the perspective of Ann Taylor, from her legal team, he's a good client, doing what he's told, trying to maintain that stoicism, which cannot be judged. Because as you can see from this case, as I said at the outset of this interview, the response of the public has really been our worst selves. We've been our worst selves in responding to this, smacking our chops over the deaths of these young girls, making light, making jokes, making fake AI videos to purport the side or the other. It's been very grotesque. It's been a menagerie of the grotesque, in my opinion. He has been a good client. He has been doing what he's told. He has not been talking, as he's been told. He's been letting Ann Taylor and her legal team talk for him. And as you and I both know, up until the weekend before the plea, it was all, I'm innocent. I want to take this to trial. I want to take this to court. Now, the question is, why would he then get up there? Well, first of all, he didn't allocute. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it's clear from his filing, is he was told two things. One, you need to confess or to get a plea to take the death penalty off the table. That's what he was told by his attorneys. Bad advice across the board, but that was the advice he was given. Then the second thing that he was told, according to his filing, was that it's okay to lie about whether or not you did it, because that will set legal things in motion, and then we will start to do appeals and we'll start to do other things around that. But this will give us time. This is a time-saving device. That's what's heavily implied in his filing. So why would he do it? One, because he was told to, and then two, he was told it would not be of legal significance. Now, whether or not you and I would have believed that, if I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, what the f are you talking about? You don't tell people to suborn perjury, knock that off right now. That's what I would have done. But I wasn't in the room. I have no, and I happen to know now who was in the room, and I know exactly what was said. And it comports with the meeting that Ann Taylor had. Around that, but this will give us time. This is a time-saving device. That's what's heavily implied in his filing. So why would he do it? One, because he was told to, and then two, he was told it would not be of legal significance. Now, whether or not you and I would have believed that, if I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, what the f are you talking about? You don't tell people to suborn perjury, knock that off right now. That's what I would have done. But I wasn't in the room. I have no, and I happen to know now who was in the room, and I know exactly what was said.
So he knows now who was in the room and exactly what was said. Yes, spill the tea, Dr. Turvey, and he does. Wait till you hear this.
And it comports with the meeting that Ann Taylor had with us, which caused me to get up and walk out, which is that she basically said, I couldn't get him to take the plea initially. I couldn't get him to do it. So what did I do? I went and I enlisted his family.
Can you believe this? Can you believe someone who knows they're innocent sitting there? They don't want to take the plea. They want to go to trial. And this attorney circumvents what her client wants and goes the opposite direction. That's what Brent Turvey's telling us. This is huge, folks.
I enlisted his family. I told him he had to do it. I gave him a horror show of what death row was going to be like. I told him what it was going to be like if he was, just in there as a regular inmate, not on death row. And it took more than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea.
Oh,
so why did he do it?
gosh.
I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial.
Did Anne not want to go to trial? Drop a 1 if you think she didn't want to go to trial. Drop a 1. Drop a 1 if you think she didn't want to go to trial. I'm wondering how many of you here are actually listening to Brent Turvey. Drop a 1. Why would she not want to go to trial with all the evidence that doesn't even point to Kohberger, guys? Woo, I'm about to get spicy up in here on the time of the freaking article, and then this. Wow. Why would she not want to go to trial? Drop your thoughts why Ann Taylor would not want to take this to trial. What? She didn't listen to her client, Ink Mama says, which tells me her true client was possibly someone else. Why was she assigned to this case? Boy, I'm going to have to turn the air up. I'm getting hot and bothered. Boy. Oh, I'm sure Turvey knows more. I'm sure he knows a lot more. This is why his dad meant and said, wait till everyone finds out what really happened. Denise, probably. I've never, I mean, it's kind of hard to prove that someone said that unless they were interviewed, right? It's very hard to prove that. I've never seen his dad interview, only his sister, Mel. I don't think she wanted to go to trial because he specifically said, she said that she couldn't get him to agree to a plea, meaning she wanted him to take the place to not go to trial. Yeah, I believe that too. You don't trust Brent Turvey. He's an opportunist. Okay, well, he's got notes and he can testify to what he saw. And I'm sure he's got some type of device recordings. These attorneys and these criminologists, and they have recordings all the time. I wouldn't be shocked to hear some of this if it ever came to a legal hearing. Too much work for her. It was a lot of work. Maybe because she didn't review all the discovery that was dropped in her lap. She's the U of I. Busted. That guy said his dad say that. Oh, well, could be. BK was no unlucky mook from the hood. He's an intellectual, academic in criminology. He could have fired Anne and gone to trial with the new lawyer. Very true. He didn't trust her. We knew the family growing up. Oh, I hear you, Denise. Paid off. Wow. Let's listen to the rest of what Brent Turvey says.
For whatever reason.
I'm wondering why you wouldn't want to go to trial. Like, this was not a financial situation, right? The Kohbergers were not paying for his legal defense. The taxpayers of the state of Idaho were paying, so their bills were being paid. They work for a public defender's office, which obviously they are paid. So, and this is not a case where, I don't know, I think the majority of the public were expecting anybody to win. So I guess my question is, what do you really have to lose? And yeah, okay, the death penalty is one area of conversation, right? We can talk about the death penalty, but I know, and hopefully Brian Kohberger understood that just because the state asks for the death penalty doesn't mean if you lose at trial, they're going to impose it on you, right? That is something that a jury decides. after the fact, and you can present mitigating evidence and things of that nature, and your mother can get up and talk about how awful it would be to know that her son is being put to death. And so there are ways to fight against the death penalty. So that was not a foregone conclusion if he were to go to trial and lose. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what do you think?
How do we know he didn't know that? Like I said before, the more knowledge you have, the smarter and safer you're going to be. So he's never been in some type of murder trial before, has he? Yeah, right? I mean, come on, folks. How would he know that?
I've always said as a lawyer, I will try anything, right? I am not in the business trying to convince clients to take pleas. I, of course, have conversations with clients when offers are made to them, because that is our
Yeah.
ethical obligation to do so. We must convey any offers made to clients. But in 26 years of doing this, I have never twisted anybody's arm. And I say to them, you live with the consequence of your decision. You want me to go in there and fight for you? I'll fight for you.
Yeah, but remember also in the filings, Anne wrote in her filings how difficult it was to work with Brian. And I wonder if that's because he kept telling her, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. And he would not get off of I'm innocent. And I could see that with autism.
So what do you think, what do you think they had to lose here by going to trial? I mean, they fought pretty hard throughout the pendency of the case. They obviously hired experts to try to put them in a position that was better at trial. So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think it was ultimately that she just didn't want to fight? Because frankly, the fight that was going on, as long as it was a fight. The trial aspect of it isn't really that difficult once you're prepared. So I'm just wondering what you think happened here.
You know what? I have to just stop that for a minute, Ink Mama. In my humble opinion, she says Turvey lost a lot more than he gains doing these interviews in defense of BK. I agree. Just like I lose a lot more doing what I do and saying that he might be innocent, right? Dude may be innocent, but who's going to stand up and say he might be innocent? Just like Turvey standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute. There's some things that I know that aren't sitting right that need to come out. And I'm glad that Brian Koberger has taken a stand for himself.
I have some speculations, but first let me just say, Donna, I wish you had been there. I wish you had been in the room. I wish you had given that advice. That was not, he was not getting that advice. That's the first thing. So one, he had no advocates for him in that room. He had only people that wanted him to plea out because they didn't want to go to trial. Two, he didn't have all the information about all the story evidence that we had found. He didn't know that. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered. And it's not me by myself. None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Two, he didn't have all the information about all the exculpatory evidence that we had found. He didn't know that. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered.
So you're telling me, Turvey, that they didn't give him the expert reports, all the exculpatory evidence? Why would they not do that? Why would they not give him everything he's entitled to? Is that now why we're seeing in the repository that, that he's asked for a lot of these documents and they're being denied? Is that what we're seeing? Hold on a second. Let me just go back into the repository and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I keep up with this on a daily basis. And you see that there was a motion for a transcript. There's no ruling on it yet. No ruling on it. Okay. But there was some other things that were on here that have been changed by now. There was no ruling on this motion for a transcript. And I'm sure the transcript has something to do with something on the record so that they could go back, and now his, obviously, new attorney, Roush, will probably amend his filing, his petition. So that just blows my mind because there is no ruling on 8-7 motion for transcript yet. And it depends on what exactly they're asking for, right? It depends on if the defense is asking for it, if Koberger's asking for it. There was something up here, okay? And I still have that. There was something denied, and I'll pull that back out of my repository and my photos. There was something that was denied prior that they have changed on the repository. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as they move forward.
And it's not me
Well,
by
that's a
myself.
problem.
That none of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast.
Wow.
So that's its own little separate problem.
And we
And
know
I'm
that
sure-
because he told somebody that, or how do we know that? Because if that's the
So
case,
I'll
that's
disclose
horrific.
something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know. And that is that after I did Queens of Custody and your podcast, the family reached out to me and like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing on this case? And why haven't we heard of
Got it.
all this stuff
Got it.
before? And then I immediately like, okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed them off to people who had legal minds, which I
Wow. I wonder if Brent gave the family over to the Innocence Project because he is very involved in a lot of those cases. You know, here's something that just shocks me to the core. Shocks me. And it's exactly what I thought. You can go back and watch my videos. He probably, Koberger, was never getting any communications from the outside world. He was being sheltered. And like I said, how do we know that Ann Taylor didn't get power of attorney over him? How do we know that somebody didn't get power of attorney over him, or the state didn't get power of attorney over him, or all obviously speculation and alleged here? But how do we know? Because we don't see any filings that they haven't unsealed. Okay? We don't see any of those filings. If something is sealed, we're not going to see it. We're not even going to see it sealed. Wow, this is wild. Absolutely wild. This is an injustice, a miscarriage. Oh, gosh. Where's Kathy Indy Zone?
do not. So I was like,
Sure.
you know, I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying. The next step has to be legal steps that I can't be involved in. You need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of. And that's what happened. So I got told by
Wow.
the family.
Yes. Yes, yes, Philly girl. We've been saying that for a while. Cruel and unusual punishment, especially from somebody who has special needs, right? I mean, it is level 1. I hate when they put it in different categories because obviously he was being snowed by the defense. Wow. Wow, wow. And we're talking about this book framed with all the corruption, with the misinjustice, with all this, oh, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Got the goat today, girl.
You are the greatest of all time. The drum.
And you are in our monthly drawing for that bombshell comment. Wow. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say injustice. Doesn't matter what level. I agree. And I've got an expert on here that came on a little while back. She's trying to get settled in, and we're going to go live again and talked about that. And this is this is framed right out of the book, right? This needs to be thrown out immediately. He needs to be exonerated. And, you know, right, John Grisham, right? Some of these people who have the authority to go up against entities like this. Brent Turvey, I am so glad that you exist for the family to give them some resources and where to go. Let's listen to the rest of what he says.
the next step has to be legal steps that I can't be involved in. So you need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of. And that's what happened. So I got told by
Wow.
the family directly that they had not received that
I
stuff.
mean,
The
that's
next thing to understand.
that's troubling. That's troubling.
Very troubling. It gets worse. It's way worse than you can possibly imagine. Way worse than I
Jeez.
even worried about. I always game out the worst case scenarios and then I sort of prepare for them, hope for the best, plan for the worst kind of deal. And it's way worse.
Think about the mental games that they have been playing with Brian Koberger. Think about let me just hold my tongue for a minute because wow, how does this make you guys feel? How does this make you feel? Whoa, I just have to curb my tongue. Yeah, there's more. He shares more, but how does that make you feel knowing that this guy, I just remember Ann Taylor looking at him in that picture.
Family has not spoken yet because they're frightened out of their minds about what's going to happen the next time they speak. The vultures will descend, the legal consequences. They've been told to be quiet for this whole time, and they've also done the same thing. Notice Brian Koberger did not allocute because he couldn't, because he didn't know what happened. His family has not spoken out other than the sister giving one interview. And even that, after that, she's now a little gun shy, but they're trying to talk, but they really don't have the facility to do that. They don't trust anybody and they shouldn't. But Koberger himself in his filing makes this very real and says, I didn't know any of this stuff. I wasn't being told anything. I wasn't being given good advice. And I was told the opposite of some of the things that are occurring right now. And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Koberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And that is exactly what he put on his PCR. That is exactly what he was saying. He was told he would probably have visits and he hasn't had anybody reach out to him. Oh my God. What did they do? Just cage him like an animal? Oh my gosh. Oh. This is insane. I didn't listen to this whole interview because I was preparing for today's stream. Hold on. So he learned this from the Koberger family. The Koberger family reached out to him, and they haven't spoken to him since the plea deal.
So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
What?
Wow.
Can you imagine?
So
that
let me.
scenario?
No,
So the
I
questions you're
can't.
asking are really for Ann
Wait
Koberger.
a minute.
Why didn't
Wait
you
a
share
minute.
this exculpatory material?
It wasn't his family. It was Ann Taylor. Oh my God. That's a freaking fireball. Wait a minute. It's Ann Taylor that hasn't spoke to him that was still represent. Oh my
Occurring right now.
gosh.
And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Koberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
So
that
let me.
scenario?
No.
So the
no.
questions you're
can't.
asking are really for Ann Koberger. Why didn't you share this exculpatory material? And why aren't you talking to your client?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean that just makes no sense to me. And when I look at this, and I want to be really clear, so
It's-
people
it
that are
makes sense to
listening or
me.
watching
In my little
understand.
brain, it makes sense to me,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
we can
yeah.
speculate
Well,
as to
sure.
why.
Sure. Well, and when I look at this, and I want people who are listening or watching to understand, there is a very big difference between the atrocities and the horrific things that happened to these 4 young college students.
Wait a minute. So Ann Taylor is representing him, but not even talking with him for over 9 months. Okay, so it's been a year now. he's putting Ann Taylor on blast, absolutely. But remember also, he did say in an interview a while back that the Ada County sheriffs reached out to him and wanted to question him about the investigation. He was like, I ain't going to be any part of that. Remember that. Okay. But you know what? If Ann Taylor was representing her client with no communication, then that means she's just doing whatever she wants without her client being informed. Wow. Wow. That's wild. And what about the flip side of that? Was Ann Taylor billing for the last year? Not seen him in the jail, not talked to him, but was she still billing hours? That's a great question, folks.
And the court process. And so, everybody out there is talking about how awful this is for the families to have to relive this, and this is coming back. And it is. It's awful. It's awful that it ever happened in the first place. But I think every person of every family member would want to make sure that whoever was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so, I've always
say
thought
that's generally true. But I won't just speak out on this very issue because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most. I've never seen a family try to sell their daughter's story like this before, ever. Going to Crime Con, trying to get different documentary deals. I'm disgusted by that. I wouldn't even think to do that as an expert, and I have access to everything. I'll talk to you, have a professional conversation, but not for money.
Sure.
And certainly I wouldn't, anybody who's out there trying to sell a story for money, that's grotesque.
And I'm not.
Oh, he just called out the G family like no tomorrow. Good for you, Dr. Turvey. Good for you. I want to hear that one more time.
To get different documentary deals. I'm disgusted by that. I wouldn't even think to do that as an expert, and I have access to everything. I'll talk to you and we'll have a professional conversation, but not for money.
Sure.
And certainly I wouldn't, anybody who's out there trying to sell a story for money, that's grotesque.
And I'm not going to judge what people do when they're put in the most horrific situations. I mean, obviously we can have personal opinions, but in terms of, just being, and again, you have to remember that these are people that are talking to one side, right? They're talking to the prosecutors. They're looking at what the prosecutors are showing them. They're believing, what they hear. But prosecutors sit down with family members prior to pleas and talking about strength of evidence. And, they do that in terms of, actual facts or physical exhibits or things like that. That might be a little bit different. But I do think that from a practical standpoint, even people who it's very difficult to relive this, I would think that even at some point, your logical brain would take over and you would say, okay, if this really isn't the guy, then we want to make sure that we find the guy. But now let me ask you this question, because here's the practical side of this. This is a very difficult thing to overcome for Bryan Kohberger, right? Taking back a plea, putting yourself in a position to actually have a trial and to be able to plead not guilty. This is a legal burden that is very high. And so I'm wondering where you think this goes next for him. Do you think legally he has enough to go into the court and say, you know what, my lawyer was ineffective and didn't do a good job. And I'm, the legal standard's high. And I'm just wondering because, the courts give a lot of deference to lawyers saying that was strategic. They made a decision. They decided not to do this. Now, it's a little different when you're talking about a plea versus a trial that went bad.
You're absolutely correct. It's a very high and very difficult legal burden for anyone to overcome. And this is not a regular case. It's a case with exceptional circumstances. The first issue is he didn't allocute. That's the first thing that always sticks out to me. It really bothered me that he didn't allocute, and that caused a lot of problems.
Same.
Because that's supposed to happen. Well, let's take a step back and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak? Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was. It didn't help him. It hurt him badly. So he should know. If Ann Taylor knows, and she definitely knows, she would have to know because she's part of that sealed material. She would have to have reviewed it. She certainly didn't pass that along to Kober. So that's a problem. That's the first little hurdle there that's going to contextualize why he wasn't looped in and why he was coerced into taking this deal and why he was told to lie, why he was told to perjure himself.
Yeah, if he didn't know that information, he couldn't have been the leak.
And again, this is something that that people do all the time under the stress and duress of a defense attorney telling him, I'm not taking this to trial. For what is it, like a third, 20, 29, 30% of all of the people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project basically confessed and took a plea deal at the urgence of their defense attorney because they were frightened they were going to lose a trial. That's a third. That's not a joke. That's something we have to think about how our legal system works. The next thing is that if this, I really appreciate that Judge Hippler appeared on paper, at least, to be taking this seriously by accepting the filing and then appointing him a new attorney. I don't know. It concerns me that it's a small town attorney that's got a 1-star rate. It concerns me a bit who the attorney is, but maybe he's better than we know. And maybe he's got death experience that we don't know about. So that's the next part. It's not just about the legal hurdles, it's about the competence and quality of your representation, right? But the other thing is that it's the next step that has to happen in the process. You've done this before, I'm certain. I don't know whether you ever worked with Innocence Networks before, but I have through my entire career. In fact, I started working with the Innocence Project. My first big case, high profile case, was the West Memphis case. And I worked directly with the Innocence Project out of Cardozo Law in that case. And the process and the metrics and the intake ability of a Innocence Project is dependent upon all the other appeals being denied or completed, those processes completed. So in terms of it being a stepping stone towards other legal avenues, you have to knock them down one at a time, right? One thing at a time. You can't just skip to the end, right? So right. I see it as a big legal hurdle. I fear that Ann Taylor is going to be in a lot more trouble than she thinks because the communications that she had with everyone are documented. They're all documented. So all that stuff is going to come out. She no longer holds a privilege, Koberger does. And if he gets his day in court, a hearing, which I worry that he won't, then all that stuff could come in. All those communications with family members and Koberger himself, which he would want to have come out about the nature and extent of the coercion to him and his family by the attorney team. All right. We're not living in the old days where it's somebody's word. We don't take people at their word anymore because we can't. We have digital evidence we can use, text messages, video calls, video chats. The very evidence that we collected, we should have all collected in this case and disclosed initially, which took years to disclose, is the very evidence that would be presented in this court, in this type of hearing. So I'm not as pessimistic as you are, but I am realistic, which is I know what the hurdles are. And as you said, Mr. Koberger is not an idiot either. So for him to put this on the table tells me that he's ready to go.
Wow.
And I don't think that his legal team is prepared for what he's going to present.
Well, and I think to your point about if we just start back with the original Dateline leak, I mean, if that comes back, that came from his own lawyers, I mean, right there, you put him in a position where he was never
or one of his
defended
experts
properly.
At the direction of the attorney, right? And not just the attorney team, but also you got 3 attorneys and their assistants, and then you've also got, kind of a rogue defense expert right now going out there saying contrary things.
Obviously, that's
and so we don't know. We all we know is police think it came from the defense. And I know who it wasn't.
If that's the case, I mean, that is just
that's
crazy. Now, let's talk about the evidence that they do believe, right, that they had against Koberger from this whole time. And I know we talked about it last time you were on. I know it's part of Christopher Whitcomb's Broken Plea book. But talk to me again about, they basically found Brian Koberger based on the DNA that they got from the IgG DNA testing on the knife sheath. And I know that part of the big contention here is that that knife sheath, the chain of custody wasn't proper, where it was found versus where it was in photos, all of those things. So talk to us again about really, because that really was the only piece of evidence they had other than the description of a vehicle, right? They didn't really have anything else. So that's what led them to Brian Koberger. So talk to me again about that and then what the issues were with that chain of custody, because I think it's important for people to remember that while they're listening today.
All right, so two things. One is that we don't know. As I'm sitting here today, I cannot confirm to you by any forensic metric or by any judicial testimony or any unsworn testimony, anything like that. I cannot attest to you that I know for sure how Brian Koberger became a suspect.
Wow.
What I do know is at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant. And then at one point, it's the IgG. And then you have the experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted and people were getting terminated. It's one of the weirdest cases ever. This was an issue that should have been resolved with testimony under oath and documentation provided by the state. They have yet to provide that clearly, in my opinion.
Jeez.
So I cannot tell you that.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can't tell you that should tell you that they're still, faffing about it to try to create, they're searching for a narrative still, I think.
And in terms of what you were able to review, do you know if you were given access to all of the evidence or were you given access to certain pieces of evidence? How do you know that what Ann Taylor allowed you to look at was actually everything she had?
I'm smiling because I really love this question from prosecutors or attorneys when I'm on the stand. So did you look at everything? And the answer to that, there's only one answer to that is, how can I possibly know the answer to that?
Well,
I couldn't know if I've seen everything.
But
She
I can tell you this.
But remember, Ann Taylor answered Hippler and she hesitated and she said yes. She said yes. I've had time to go through all this evidence. The evidence that she never shared with her client. The client never saw any of this evidence, had no input to their defense. Remember, Brian Koberger was not a criminal attorney.
Ann Taylor gave experts like myself access to a OneDrive on Google Drive that was called Expert One or whatever. And anytime you wanted to access it, you had to log in, put in the password. That would send her an email and she would send you a text message with a verification code. Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with any of that. What I do know is I thought I was given, I asked for certain things. I make a list of things that I asked for. It's a pro forma list I asked for in every case. And so I do that. And then we go to Idaho to do the evidence viewing, which I do in almost every case that I can. I do an evidence viewing to see what they got, to check chains of custody, to check, like I was just in a case in Washington. It was a double homicide. And I had an item, and no fault of anybody. This was just an innocent mistake. Somebody collected an item and it said stun gun on it, right? I open up the bag. It's a flashlight, not a stun gun. There's no stun gun in there. Okay. This was just a mistake. Okay. And I wouldn't, it will get mentioned, but it's not, there isn't a lot of other mistakes around that. Do you know what I mean? So it was an error.
Got it. Yeah, of course.
Somebody thought it was a stun gun and that's how they labeled it. And, they got a new system. They're working on this particular location. It's all, I'm not out for blood. I just want to know what happened. In this case, I went there.
Sure.
And there were two sets of evidence. One is the evidence that the law enforcement collected. And it was the mattress from Ethan and the knife sheath that was collected. Both of them have falsified chains of custody. Both of them, it's not just a knife sheath, it's a couple other things.
Wait a minute.
And many of the other items have correct chains of custody.
Wait a minute. He just said there was falsification for the mattress. Ethan's mattress? What?
How they labeled it. And, they got a new system. They're working on this particular location. It's all, I'm not out for blood. I just want to know what happened. In this case, I went there.
Sure.
And there were two sets of evidence. One is the evidence that the law enforcement collected. And it was what we have, the mattress from Ethan and the knife sheath that was collected. Both of them have falsified change of custody. Both of them, it's not just a knife sheath, it's a couple other things. And many of the other items have correct change of custody on them with multiple people signing them. So we know that they know how to do it correctly. And it's not improper, it's illegal. It's a falsification of evidence. It's actually tampering with evidence. That would be the charge. And also false swearing. You can't lie. It's a sworn document that you're filling out. So it's not like
Yeah, of course.
oops, I
Yeah.
slipped and fell and filled it out for everybody wrong. No, that's not what happened. How did I know whether or not I had received everything from Ann Taylor? I can tell you that I didn't, because when I got to the bed frame that Ann Taylor's team had forced the police to collect before they destroyed the house, along with many other bloody items that the police did not want to check, did not want to collect, I found the hair on it, in this item. I'm like, what is going on here? This looks like a palm print on the side, and then there's all this hair there. Whose is this? And I look at it, it's Ethan's, the bed frame. It's white with wooden slats. And I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, that's the hair. Don't worry about that. We'll talk to you about that later. So we go back and we talk about it later, and they disclosed to me new autopsy photos that they hadn't given to me before. And other photographs that they'd taken of that, defense photographs that they had taken of the house before it was demolished that they had not given to me. So they were playing their cards very close to the vest in terms of sharing material, even with me, which I found to be, I let them know that was not okay. You got to share with me everything, because I anticipate being on stand.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to get this question from a very smart prosecutor named Donna, who's going to ask me, how do you know you've seen everything? And I'm going to have to throw you under the bus, and I'll do it.
That's right. That's right. Say, sorry, I don't know that answer. They filed so many pretrial motions here. There was a lot of pretrial litigation in this case. And I don't remember any pretrial litigation dealing with chains of custody and whether or not certain items should be used, right? I think they did do it on the knife sheath, right? But I don't know if they did it on anything else.
They didn't know until like a month. No, it was like maybe a few weeks before the plea, because it got brought, one of the investigators brought a question to my attention, which led us down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I don't think like that. I don't think that people are lying. But I also think as a scientist, which is that if I see something wrong in one spot, I know I got to look in the other spots too. I can't just now accept it without question. So you're always supposed to be checking change of custody. And I'd love to take credit for finding everything, but I didn't. I'm the forensic scientist though. So if an investigator brings me a piece of evidence and asks me about it, then I give my opinion, then that becomes evidence. And then it causes us to look at other things, and the change of custody were all falsified on those as well.
I mean, that would have been an amazing pretrial motion, because then you put that out there, you show the weakness, and then you put the police officers on the stand and they have to answer to this. And, I'm still trying cases. I did a jury last week and I had a police officer admit to me that yes, evidence helps. Well, gee, go figure. Yes, it does. And so it would just, it's amazing. Yeah, it was such an amazing answer. And so, I look at this and I think to myself, these are defense dreams, right? These types of motions, to be able to put this out there and possibly not only cut through evidence, but if you cut through enough evidence that the prosecution can't use, and if a judge tosses it out, or even if the judge doesn't toss it out, you're preserving all these rights on appeal. It just is amazing to me that given all the other work that they did, and maybe you're right, maybe this comes down to the fact that she realized she was going to have some issues with regard to these leaks and thought we better get out of this case as quickly as we can. And if that's the case, that is an injustice to everyone in this case, not only Brian Koberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper. And certainly that was my experience with her, but also it was the experience of Mr. Koberger. She was there, instead of in her role as an evaluator, she was doing all kinds of other things that she shouldn't be doing. And I've worked so many death penalty cases. The lines are so very clear about what your role is, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, the types of communication that you have, difference between treatment and diagnosis, which is a therapeutic position, and then assessment of mental faculty for for a forensic assessment, a forensic position. These two areas are in conflict, and you can't have the same person doing both. And so in this case, it was the lines were so blurred for everybody, myself not included, because I've done this so many times. I protect myself very carefully because I anticipate testimony and I anticipate having to answer questions under oath. And I alone can be held accountable, whereas somebody who's not going to testify or a lawyer will not be held to account the same way. So I agree with you. It's a travesty, but I think what I think people need to understand from this is that it is far worse than most people understand. The conduct that was engaged in by the defense team, the conduct that was engaged in by the person who made the leak, depending on who that is, the lack of transparency of the defense team to Mr. Koberger, and all the other allegations of being coerced. I mean, he's not going to make that allegation unless he has the evidence. And if she's communicating with him over text messages, well, guess what?
Right, exactly. And the real travesty, beyond, obviously locking up somebody if you don't have the proof, but the real travesty too is if let's say that the judge says, you know what, Mr. Koberger, we're going to let you withdraw your plea. We're going to start this over from the beginning. I mean, the expense alone to the taxpayer to have to do this again would be horrible. I mean, lawyers take oaths. And if you can't trust that your own lawyer is going to do what's best for you, or at least put you in a position where you make the decision, right? Here's all the evidence. Here's Dr. Turvey's report. Here's everybody else's findings. Here's what we've discovered. And at the end of the day, they're offering to take the death penalty off the table. Do you want it or not based on the evidence? That's one thing, right? And there's a lot of people who I think should go to trial that sometimes don't, because they don't want to take the risk. And that's a decision that clients make. But that is completely different than being put in a position where you're not told about pieces of evidence, or you're not told about strength of evidence, or you're not told about the way experts view evidence. That's a completely separate conversation.
Yes. So to your first point, let's talk about the money, because that's been covered a lot. And I think it's important for people to understand that the death penalty is expensive. It's one of the reasons why many states stopped doing it, because when you are working a case and you're working now, let me give you full disclosure. My contract was for about 25 grand. That's about $10,000 more than I normally make on a given case. All right. And that's disclosing a lot, because most experts don't like to talk about money. If I worked only for the prosecution, I'd be able to charge between $150,000 and $200,000 per case.
Dang.
I don't do that. I work for either side. The money is not what's important to me. Most of the money is not going to have a lot of money will be spent by the defense, but most of the money will be spent by the state. All right, to try to make their case. I have not seen cases spend this much money in a long time, and this much money for so little result. The money shouldn't even be the conversation. The conversation should be, how did we spend this much money and we still don't have answers from the prosecution, or we have overstated, overcompetent evidence? And I can tell you it's because they basically, handed the investigation and the forensics over to the FBI and let them do it. And just kind of like, well, we don't really know anything about that. We'll let you do it. And the FBI were overconfident and wrote reports that said one thing and then had to testify in a way that reduced their confidence about the car, about the DNA, about how people were found, about the cell tower stuff. I mean, it's all just too disgusting. Again, it's disgusting for me to spend this amount of money and not have straight answers from anybody on the state side. Everybody having to reduce themselves. They took this very 100% posture of guilt, and then you get them under oath, and all of a sudden it's 70%, maybe 80%. I don't know. So there is the money issue. Yeah, but the money issue, when you are morally certain that the death penalty is the right thing for your state, it's going to cost you, because we do not put people to death in this country when we think that they might be innocent. All right. That's a rule. Sure. I mean, we don't kill innocent people, right? We can agree with that. I hope we don't want to kill innocent people. So in the search for truth, resources will be expended, not just money, but time and effort and emotions and all that good stuff. So that's the first thing. What I would expect is if Hippler says, I'm going to grant it for you, let's start over. Great. Let's get a real death qualified attorney that actually has experience working in death penalty trials. Not somebody who's a dealer who knows how to make a plea and has maybe worked a couple cases. I mean, somebody who actually knows what they're doing.
Amen.
Because this is a case where now everybody's sort of on the line. The second thing is, if anybody on the side of the state or the defense has engaged in misconduct, They have opened themselves up to litigation and lawsuits. I worked on a case in Connecticut. What was it? Versus Birch and Henning, the Birch and Henning case. These were was a home invasion where the only evidence in the case was DNA from blood alleged to have been found on a towel. That was the only evidence, all right, in the whole case. And I did the examination of that evidence in the case, and I found that the expert in that case had falsified that item.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So I am looking at, is this Birch and Henning? This, let me see if this is it. 25.2 million settlement for 2 Connecticut prisoners exonerated after 35 years. Have got to be kidding me. Is this what they're afraid of? 8 million on top of however many millions of dollars that Koberger will sue the state of Idaho for? Holy moly. Police described the crime scene as the bloodiest they've ever encountered. Carr, 65, was found dead in his home of his daughter, Evelyn Colombo, who was stabbed 27 times, including a deep 5-inch wound across his neck. Birch was 18 and Henning was 17. Birch's civil rights complaint recalled. Wow. This is crazy, Dr. Henry Lee. Yep. Wow, this is wild. Just insane. The knowledge we learn here, guys. Let me go back and put this up here.
I did the examination of that evidence in the case, and I found that the expert in that case had falsified that item.
It
And that case
happens.
went all the way to the Supreme Court of Connecticut. That expert was Henry Lee, my mentor. Now, what happened?
Wow.
He got sued personally, and he got sued to the tune of $30 million, and he lost. He refused to show up to defend himself. He knew what he had done. He had dry labbed this result for the police. There was a bunch of other cases that were going on at the same time where the same allegations were being made. But this was back in 2011. So when experts lie, there should be consequences. And in many states, there are.
Sure,
When
just like
lawyers
police
lie
or
for
anybody. Yes,
foreign perjury,
absolutely.
there should be consequences. And that's a separate conversation. What I'm concerned about is people have already kind of decided, well, he's guilty, so he's done. He already said he was guilty. Again, 1/3 of defendants who are investigated by the Innocence Project are found to have been wrongfully convicted. 1/3 of them were coerced by their defense attorneys. This is a common concept. I am so grateful to you as an attorney, as a criminal justice professional, that you and I can meet, regardless of the side that we take, on this very even plane of, hey, we don't do that. We let the client
Exactly.
decide. You give them my job is to educate attorneys educate the client, and my job then becomes maybe educate the court, maybe educate a jury, but ultimately there's a trier of fact that's going to come in and make a decision. And we want them to have the best and fullest and most complete set of information that exists. You and I can agree on that without getting mad at each other. That's not the world we live in right now.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants anybody to have a fair shake. Nobody wants anybody to the truth to come out. People decide who the monsters are, and then they go down that road instead of doing the investigation.
It's interesting you say that because just this last week I did a jury and it was an attempted murder case and the client had another lawyer for the first 7 years that his case was pending. And we came in and I think in about 8 months decided to take the case to trial. And this guy was trying to push this guy to take a deal every which way from Sunday. And we came in and I talked to him about that deal. And I talked to him about why it was less of a risk because it was much less time than he would serve if he lost. But at the end of the day, he has a right to have his day in court. And we tried that case and that jury came back in about 4.5 hours with a not guilty. So, you have to be able to, and for clients that say, I did not do this, I am actually innocent, and I want to have my day in court, then they're willing to take a risk.
That's exactly right. If you have somebody who's guilty and they get a good plea deal, they're going to take it. All right. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That sets up a stereotype. And if you apply that stereotype or that caricature of a defendant to Brian Koberger, you're going to miss all the important information and facts and details underneath the surface that are going on that he has not been talking about. Like I said, he's been a good client, as far as I can tell, by virtue of doing what he was told, as well as his family, and keeping their mouths shut.
Talk to me a little bit
Holy
about
moly.
the hair that was found in Ethan Chapin's hand. I know we talked about this originally. This is something that's gotten a lot of communication online and otherwise, and that the hair did not match Brian Koberger's, but there's some inconclusive facts out there. And again, because the prosecutors really didn't answer, and because Koberger didn't really allocute, there's still a lot of questions surrounding that hair. The police are saying it was tested, it wasn't Koberger's, that it was Chapin's himself. Now, is that true, or do we have no idea who that hair belongs to?
Nobody who's under oath is saying that, and no report says that it belongs to
Okay,
you.
so we got to hold on right there, because there was a report that I went through the other day under the experts, and it's Justice for All. You guys know how to get there. And in that report, under expert reports, witnesses 1045, that's how many pages there are. Let me let this load. There was hair that was testified. It was test, and it was saying that it was Ethan's hair. So let me pull this up. It's not the hair in front of the dryer. That was the gray shirt with clump of hair in front of the dryer. There was another one. Inconclusive. Yeah, is illegal wood. Could be. Not sure. But someone did put in here it was Ethan's hair. It was tested. Who was that? Was that Ballard? I think it was Ruth Ballard. Hold on. I think it was. We'll go back to that in a minute. I'll pull it up while we're listening to this. Let me get back here.
That is where our
Okay,
world exists. So anybody who's saying these
Yes.
is guessing. They're saying maybe it's him, maybe it's not. Just like Ann Taylor and her team said, what if they asked me, what if it belongs to somebody in the house? I'm like, well, maybe it does. We need to find out who that is and how it got in his hand, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that would wreck
Right.
the timeline. Well, let's talk about what does exist, okay? The hair, my first encounter was the hair on the bed frame. And it was like probably 20, 30 strands, about that long, coming off the bed frame, attached in blood on the bed frame with Ethan's in the
That's a
sort of
lot.
imprint
I
of
mean,
Ethan's
20,
hand.
30 strands. That's a lot. Yeah. It's
It's
a
way
lot.
more than that. Okay, so but that's what I could see. I can show you the pictures right now if you want to. But the pictures of the hair on the bed frame and that are also attached to the wall is even more. There's even a bigger clump from what's on the bed frame attached to the wall. When they pulled it away, there's a nice little streak of blood. When they pulled it away, there's hair attached to the wall.
Wow.
And sealed to the wall with blood. And it's even more than that amount of hair. Then we have the hair that's in his hand, the phone was taken at the crime scene. Okay, so there's 3 different photos. So anybody who has not looked at all the evidence and who is speaking on issues that they don't know anything about because they're not a reconstructionist or not a forensic scientist, anybody who's saying that those hairs doesn't exist, it means that they haven't looked at the evidence and aren't aware of what's going on in the case. They viewed the case through their very narrow aperture. I did crime scene analysis and reconstruction, which means my hands were in everything. All right, so those photographs exist, and not only that, they were leaked online. There are people that have put these photographs online and put them into nice collages for everybody to see. So the first hurdle to clear is, do they exist? Yes. Then when the police wrote a report about it, it was described in the autopsy report and the police reports as debris in his hands. There was no debris in his hands. It was
Yes.
just human hair. All right.
Got
A
it.
clump of it in his hands, then some stuck to the bed frame, and then some stuck to the wall. That hair was of such significance that they sent it off to the FBI lab, who looked at it under a microscope and said, these hairs do not share similar characteristics. Therefore, there's no DNA testing needed to be done. And Brian Koberger is excluded. These are the facts. These are not Brent Turvey's speculations. This is what exists on the record. Now, have you heard anything about that? Other than through me? No. No one wants to talk about it. Why? Because it would upend the case. It would upend everything. It would change everything we think about the timeline, the narrative,
Right.
the interaction, who was in what room. But there's other evidence. There's down in the first floor bedroom, we have the jacket that didn't get collected or tested properly. We have a bloody bracelet that was on the floor that got picked up and moved by police and put on one of the desks and ignored and not collected. We have many different items of evidence like that that weren't exactly examined or considered in the timeline because they got lost or forgotten or just plain ignored because they didn't fit the narrative. I come back to the same thing every time. When you want to know what happened, you examine the evidence. When you want to know what the truth is, you pursue that evidence to find out whose it is, how it got there, conditions of transfer, and what that means for the entirety of the reconstruction of the case. And there's not a real interest in doing that. In fact, they were so disinterested in doing that they demolished the house. I never even heard of that before, where you demolished the house.
Yeah.
Me neither.
And then they created this 3D model of it that I went out again to examine and took my photographs and did a 3D scan of it. It doesn't even match the interior of the house.
I told
It's full
you
of
guys.
incorrect access, incorrect sizes. It's a big sign there, not the
I told you when I saw the dollhouse, they didn't even lift the top off the dollhouse. Oh my God.
scale. They wanted to use it as a trial exhibit. Didn't have anything in it. Didn't have anything to do with the case. Just an approximation of maybe what the house might have looked like inside. We're not sure.
I'm going to say that I feel like no matter which way you fall on this, right? Whether you think Brian Kohlberger did it, whether you think he didn't do it, no matter what you think, I think everyone that's paid attention to this case has always wanted to see a trial here, because a trial was either going to expose that there was or there wasn't enough evidence, and a trial could potentially answer the question, why or how. And so no matter how you feel about this, no one got those answers. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Judge Hippler does and see if we ever get those answers. But no matter what happens, I'm sure, Dr. Turvey, I will want to talk to you about it. So I hope you'll be back with me, and I thank you so much.
That was an amazing interview, Dr. Turvey. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. He did call them grotesque. He said it's grotesque for them to go and want to sell their whatever and make money off of this case, off their daughter. Oh my gosh. Now, I'm going to say, admitted that the FBI had 2 reported documents that are completely different. Wow. What? Wait a minute. Now, we're going to go a little bit deeper into here today since I have a little bit of time. Now, I know that he was, Steve G went on Hannity, right? I wanted to save that one. There is another one that I saw, Brian Enton. I saw that one, but now you're saying Steve G, Cy Ray, and Olivia today, and Cy Ray admitted the FBI had 2 reported documents that are completely different. Now we're going to bring in, wait, this document is not correct. Now we're going to have another set of documents. What? What are we listening to? Let me look and see. Olivia and Cy Ray. Hold on. Let me just see if I've got it. Oh my gosh. And you said it just came out? Let me look for the video. That was 2 days ago. This was 2 weeks ago. Let me see. Cy Ray. That's 14 days ago. I don't see anything newer. When did it come out and where? Steve G, Cy Ray, and Olivia. I don't see anything on them today. Let me see. Let me go another search. I've never seen an expert jump ship so fast, guys, ever. I don't see any videos out today with Cy Ray. Maybe you can pop that over to me and we'll take a look at that. But it's in the Enton interview. Okay, hold on a minute. You mean they jump on the Enton interview? What? Now, I saw that on News Nation. Oh my goodness. Let me see if there's any news. Is that the one where they say, he says, she says, is that the one on Como? Let me take a peek at this. They were on Hannity yesterday. We're all going to trial. Woohoo! You guys are funny. Yeah, this interview is wild. With Christy, have you guys seen that? I watched like maybe 2.5 minutes and then I had to go. It was just briefly. They hang out with him. She's all cozied up on the couch or the chair. It's a long interview and I want to break it down. Hold on a minute. That's when they're saying that he was stalking Maddie, right? The police have already said there was no stalking. That's what shocks me is if y'all, I can't make this up. I can't make it up. If they say there was no stalking, how can they come and they say this on here? Let's just watch a clip, okay? We can go through all of it and do commentary. I'm just saying, let's watch a little bit of it and let me put the captions on.
On killing one, and that is either Keeler or Maddie.
And let's start it.
I don't think he intentionally went into that house to kill four. I think he intended on killing one, and that is either Keeler or Maddie.
We've now found out that they consulted with the murderers, the mass murderers family, before they consulted with us. That's how upside down our system is. I'm going to let you.
But wait a minute here. We just heard from Turvey. We heard everything that was not happening with Ann Taylor on the defense side. Now, if any of that is true, and I'm just saying with a grain of salt, I don't think he has any reason to lie. But if he went forward and said that, think about this. Think about this, folks. Okay? You have an attorney on both sides. They're both paid by the same pockets. And you have the state not having any evidence. They didn't want to go to trial. Could you imagine the loss the state would have had in its record to go to trial against a alleged mass murderer and the jury finding him not guilty? That would have been worse than saying, hey, we made a mistake and got the wrong guy. Think about that.
Your audience knows something that I don't think anyone's talked about, which they told us at the very end. They were going to have an expert that came on and said that thumb, the print, had multiple touch points on it. So they were going to say there was fresh fingerprint type, and then there was aged ones. There was some that had been dated. So they were going to say that whoever did this single source, one person's DNA, had touched this button multiple times.
We went 7 weeks, and it was pure torture. It was agony. It was like what I would imagine hell being like. It was just terror, fear, sadness, anger. I feel like he is a demon. I feel like he is like, like the devil himself.
It's possessed.
And am I supposed to forgive a demon? Am I supposed to forgive the devil?
When you think of personal tragedy in life, and I've met too many people in my life that have lost children.
And they're making the circuit, folks. They're making the circuit. They've been on the Today Show. They've been on so many interviews in the last couple of days, ever since the PCR came out.
And it gets emotional. I mean, if you have children, the thought of losing a child, what it would do to you. I don't think I would ever be the same. I don't think I could recover. I think I'm generally a strong person. I take a lot. Life's given me hits, roll with punches, all of that. But losing a child, well, you've heard the Kohlberger case out in Idaho. and you've heard about these 4 wonderful college kids. You've all seen videos of how cool they look and how fun they were and how amazing. You've heard a lot about their stories. And, now we have this guy, Kohlberger. He initially took a plea, and it was going to be life in prison, no chance of parole. A lot of the parents were upset because that means no chance of the death penalty. And now last minute, he comes up with, I think I'll take that trial now, which then may open him up to the death penalty, which I think is actually a pretty good thing. Netflix, I think, did the greatest documentary. It's actually called Idaho Murders, College Nightmare. It's a parent's worst nightmare. It is the greatest fear a parent has when you have children. It was amazing. When I grew up, I talked about this a lot. I was a kid that ran the streets. My parents worked all the time. And then how did I grow into a helicopter parent? It's crazy. And I did, because I want my kids doing what I did, to be very blunt. Now, Christy and Steve Gonsalves are with us. They lost their precious daughter, Kaylee, one of the 4 college kids murdered. The amount of detail in this documentary, and I watched the whole thing, it was just released not that long ago, at the end of July, is unbelievable.
Oh, here we go with the documentary.
First, my deepest sympathy to both of you. I am so sorry. I don't know. You have been unlike a lot of other parents that lose children. You are willing to fight. You're willing to do media. You're willing to remind people who your daughter was. You just gave me this beautiful card. And I want you, before we even get started, I want you to, and it's a picture of your daughter, and it's a legacy of love.
Let's get into the actual interview.
Are sitting on the shelves. It can help for them now. But case, law enforcement agencies are so inundated with stuff going on right now. They don't have time to go back and pull these cases off. And so funding is what is stopping their cases.
Is it me, or does she look like an angry bird with these glasses? Oh my gosh.
From being answered. So we're paying for that.
So this technology's only been around for 6 or 7 years. So think of every case before that. You went into CODIS, which is 19 million people. Back then, I don't know what it was. If you don't get a hit, your case goes cold, for the most part. Well, the world's changed. And thank God our case is an example of how the world's changed. Technology, if you think you can get away with these crimes, I got something for you, man. You're not going to get away with it anymore. The world has changed. Technology's catching up. We're coming for you. We're hunting the killers now. That's what this is about. We're taking technology. We're coming after everyone who thought they got away with this, and now we're going to put you in your place.
Well,
got away with what? This crime?
What makes this case unique in this sense is this guy seemed to be studying criminology, how to plan the perfect murder. And then he leaves this knife sheath. And the most bizarre thing to me is when I'm watching the Netflix series and they said there was no blood, they discovered nothing in his car. Yeah. He thought he was clever. He turned off his phone. He drove a whole other way home. But then, of course, we have surveillance camera. Thank God, technology. You see his car go in, 3 or 4 times, and then he goes in about 4 o'clock in the morning, and this is when these murders are committed. Let's talk about what you have figured out about that night and about this guy. I mean, one of the most heart-wrenching things is I know your story, and I've read it inside and out, watch this series, is you don't know what motivated this guy. Why these girls? Why this house? Why these 4 kids? There was other people in the house. He came eyeball to eyeball with another girl in the house. Didn't kill her. It's mind-numbing to me, Steve.
I think he's seen something so beautiful in that house with that camaraderie, the way that they gravitated and they had like friends, all these parties. That was like the place to be. They called it the Queens on the King Road.
Queens on King.
Queens on King. Like that was opposite of what was inside of him, this dark evilness, this cold thing that he couldn't relate to society. And he just wanted to be vengeful, to find that one group of people that had everything he didn't have. And he just did that loop over and over and just pumped himself up. And that's if I was the prosecutor, that's where my thoughts would have been.
But you never got to any of those answers.
No, because he chose his will over the victim's will. He thought, I don't need to have these answers. I mean, if it was his child, he would have needed to have those answers, but it's not his child. So he's like, I don't need the answers.
He told us it doesn't matter. And we were like, it does matter. He said, is it, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, talk about wanting to grab a
well, it does. It does. We want to know.
They didn't have to do a plea deal. You never have to do a plea deal.
No.
And you were not happy particularly at the time, neither one of you, right?
No, not at all. Yeah. We were infuriated. Yeah. We were losing our mind.
There's concessions that they can do and say, yes, we'll give you a plea, but you're going to say what that second weapon is, because we've never told the general public what those wounds look like and what that is. If your weapon matches that and experts agree with it, we're good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so
that's what a professional does.
There was a second weapon that was used only on Kaylee, and even the FBI, who specializes in, being able to identify wound patterns and whatnot, have not been able to identify that. So, if he were to say this or that.
You mean the best of the best? The best of the best out there in the FBI have not been able to identify a second weapon. The police, MPD, and ISP said you'll have to talk to the G's about that. This is the only outspoken family. Why is this? Does anybody know? Yes, and the FBI indicated that Brian's DNA was not on the sheath. Even when they gave them the tip, they said to only use it as a tip. And in Moscow, yep, in the MPD documents, and this is why Payne, when interviewing Molly, what he said, she confirmed that it was MPD in that car. That's why they got her out of there quickly. They weren't going to be able to use her as a witness. Yes, they admitted it. We've read those documents, guys.
There would be somebody probably be able to confirm.
When they're making this plea deal
correct.
and you're talking to the prosecutors, what are you telling them?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. What do you
They
mean?
listen.
It was too late. By the time we got the email, the deal had already been sent over. It had already been sent over. And they said we can meet with, and it happened on a Sunday. It happened on a Sunday. And we got an email around 5 p.m. that they had made the offer.
So they probably knew where you'd come down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So Sean, what you described, you never recover from something like this. As a parent, you can't go to the store and buy another Kaylee J. You just can't. So you never recover. You can try to pretend. You can put a happy face on. You can be motivated. You can start an organization. I'm probably a lot like you. You piss me off, and I'm going to come for you, and I'm going to come for you in a way that you've never seen. I'm going to be the worst victim in the history of being victims. So that was our motivation.
Boy.
But you don't recover from this. And when you have a prosecutor saying, I don't have the fight that you have, and I just want this over.
Well, I do know that friends of the family, and they watch this stream, and I do know that people know people in the media. So if I was to allege that somebody sent somebody after me to try to discredit me, it didn't work. Justice for All has had a 2,000 plus uptick in hits since that article was printed yesterday. That means more people are coming to the website and reading the documents, downloading these documents, guys. Okay? They're looking into who Phoenix is, why is Phoenix saying this, and what do these documents and where do these videos, where do they exist? Oh, it was 6-hour live. I have to go back and redo that one. They're probably like, well, it should have worked. It didn't work. If anything, there is more people coming to Justice for All and seeing why people take plea deals, why people are convicted, why innocent people get framed. They are getting to see this in real time, guys. If anything, let them come and join the party, right? We're just going to keep sharing everything we see, everything that is released, everything that goes against what these people are saying. It's like they have not read a document. And why not? Why have they not read any documents? Doesn't make sense.
I remember going after him and saying, I will work my tail off to tell the world how you sold me out.
And by the way, I really applaud you, because I think every time you do a show, a podcast, and you've been on my show and other shows on Fox and other networks, every time you're now reliving it, just to maybe put emphasis on what it means if you lose a child, which I think is the hardest thing for any parent to go through. What is every day like? Here's what I imagine. Tell me if I'm wrong. Your eyes open up and maybe you had a good night's sleep. Maybe you didn't. I don't sleep a lot. But if you had a good night's sleep, how long is it before, boom, the first thought comes in your head?
It is the first thought every single morning when I wake up. The first thing every single morning. And I often ask myself, is this going to be forever? Will this eventually end? Will it not be the first thing that I think about when I open my eyes?
Yeah.
But at this point, I've learned that it's just the new way of life. And at this point, I guess I don't want to have the thought Kaylee's gone, Kaylee's dead, but a better thought like, Kaylee, I just thought of Kaylee, not what happened to Kaylee. You know, I hope that thought changes, but it's every morning, Kaylee's not here.
Steve, same for you?
I'll add to what she's saying. First and foremost, before she goes to bed, she's praying that Kaylee comes and visits her. She wants to have a conversation. She wants to talk to her. She wants to tell her she loves her. She wants to say everything that we can't say. So yeah, you start like that. And then if you don't have that dream, you wake up disappointed that you didn't have a dream about your baby and had that conversation. And then you just try to fake it through it. For me, you go to work at a hospital, there's people living and dying, and you got to bring your A game. You can't break anything. If you make a mistake because your mind's somewhere else, it's really going to hurt people. So you just got to focus and just get through the day. And then I start thinking to myself, I got time and energy, and I got to be focused to get this guy off the streets and make sure another family doesn't ever have to deal with a guy like this again.
I mean, that's the amazing part about you, both of you, to me, that you do that. Now, you have 5 kids, right? Including Kaylee. And one in particular got really active as well as both of you, but not all of them.
Yes.
So I kind of understand it.
Yeah, why is Steve Jr. hiding? You know, he talked big on the steps of the Ada County Courthouse, and then you don't hear from Steve G. Jr. anymore. What the heck is going on with that? Why are there other kids not advocating? Why does Ethan Chapin's brother not advocating?
It's too hard.
Yes.
They lost their beloved sister.
Yeah.
How about the one that is involved?
She's the oldest.
She's Olivia?
Olivia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's the mama.
She's the oldest. And
good for her.
Yeah, she just Kaylee was her best friend. Yeah. Kaylee was her best friend. And Maddie as well. She loved Maddie fiercely and with everything in her. And
they were in the same room that night, just so people that maybe forgot the details.
Yes, they were in Maddie's room. And it just it's affected all of our children. Olivia has been able to talk about it and to speak about it. Our youngest actually just spoke for the first time a couple days ago. She finally said she wanted to speak, so she spoke on the Today Show with us. Oh. But
how'd that go?
Yeah, it went good. And then she spoke lengthily on Jesse Weber. He gave her a little bit more time. She was wondering if she could have a little bit more time, and he was just like, "Let's go." And gave her the platform, and it was really nice because she really said what she wanted to say. But she was 16 when this happened, and I think that they were just all so shell shocked. And Olivia already had kids, so she was a little bit older, and she was just like, "Oh no, like Kaylee and Maddie both." And even if it was just Kaylee, and even if it was just Maddie, she would have been the same way. But she was like, no, I'm doing everything that I can. And, people sometimes, a lot of people look at it as that we're just like seeking attention. We just can't get out of the camera, get enough camera. And, it's like, I would much rather, I would do anything to not be ever on any show, any Netflix documentary, on any 48 hours, and have Kaylee back. And we don't do it for exposure of us. We're here to talk about Kaylee. We're here to talk about what happened. We're here to talk about, our foundation that wants to help people, get answers to what happened to their children, or their mother or their father, who have gone years with no answers. We went 7 weeks, and it was pure torture. It was agony. It was like living in like what I would imagine hell, being like just, bad, just nothing good. Just every emotion there is to feel, but anything positive. There was no good. There was no happy. There was no, it was just terror, fear, sadness, anger. You didn't know who did this. We had 2 other daughters that were in high school still. We didn't know if we should send them to school. They were saying it was targeted. We didn't know if it was our family, if it was our daughters. 7 weeks. And it was.
Why would it be their family? Why would they think their family would be targeted? That doesn't make sense.
I just can't. It's so hard for me to imagine these families that have gone any longer than that at all. And, there's families that have gone years. And if we could help pay for that with our foundation and with the labs that we have partnered with, and they could help them, and with the law enforcement, I think paying for it is just a small thing, that our foundation can do to get these people that phone call that we got that night, and from our attorney, and said they've made an arrest. And that changed everything.
So, Sean, I'll tell you from a father, because that's how we relate. We're men of a certain character. When you own your family, you own your security. And when somebody, the 7 weeks, I couldn't keep my family secure. They would tell me, what if he's under our car? What if he's in the back alley? I have 8 acres, so I have privacy. They're like, Dad, he could be anywhere in the woods. And I just put guns all through my house and said, we will not live like this. We will not live in fear. I hated that a man could do that to my family, that could put us in a situation where we were living in fear. And I wasn't living in fear, but I couldn't install that in everyone. So I'm waking up early, going outside, making sure that our security lights are working, our cameras are on, we're doing all these things. But that's what it's like to go through it and to know that some families never get it. They never get they never figure out who he is. Like, how would I have done that for every day for the rest of my life? I'm going out there trying to secure us, trying to make sure that the boogeyman's not out there. So if I can help another family get away from that, then that gives me motivation to keep going in Kaylee's name and Maddie's name. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Let me go back to the both of you consistently wanted the death penalty, which, by the way, I agree with both of you adamantly. I think this guy deserved the death penalty. And I don't know why they made a plea deal and then didn't tell you until after the deal was done. You should have been consulted. The other family should have been consulted. Now, they're not as outspoken as you, but they, what you told me before we came on the air, they do encourage you to keep these names alive and justice. What was their explanation to you why they did not consult with you?
It's worse than that, because we've now found out that they consulted with the murderers, the mass murderers family, before they consulted with us. That's how upside down our system is. And they encourage this.
His PCR, his post-conviction relief, it states that these conversations, the plea deal conversations, were made with himself and his family. So he's using his family as witnesses to basically say that he was coerced by his attorney.
They played into
coerced into that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, are you glad? Because this hopefully opens the door to a possible death penalty.
Yes, in that sense. I wish it would have already happened, because we were already in those shoes. We were already in that state of mind.
Now you're
we were ready
opening
to
up
go.
all the old wounds, the whole thing.
So,
opened up.
part of me is like, oh my gosh, I mean, we had a house rented for 3 months, and, we lost out a lot of money on renting that house that they did not return to us. When that got canceled on the last minute. But we were relocating for 3 months. I mean, but Boise is 6 hours away from us. We were taking our animals. My sister and my son, they were both going to quit their jobs.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get that much time off. Steve was actually able to arrange that with his work. But
this is life and death.
Yeah. I mean,
if you can't show up for life and death, I don't know what to do. I'm just built that way.
And the Laramie family, Karen always says, please, talk about, Maddie and this and that. She tells, she's
Maddie
like,
was was Kaylee's closest friend.
Yes, Maddie and Kaylee were best friends. Yes, since they were very young, and Karen is Maddie's
They look like
friend.
sisters in the
I know. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I never thought it. They're together. They look like complete opposites. But then you see pictures, and you're like, wow, why do they look so much? And the more the time goes by, I feel like they look more and more like it's just.
Well, they shopped together. They had coffees together. They did everything.
They did everything together.
Hey, since 1879, their people have been more than a source of energy. They have been a source too in this process.
So really quick, that is Anthony Dollinger. And Anthony Dollinger's name, I don't even remember hearing Anthony Dollinger's name throughout any of this. He came, I heard his name even after the sentencing, and I thought he was somebody new to the field.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, he's always been the chief of police. I thought the chief of police.
He was there day one, though. I don't want to discard him, but he was not the lead.
No, I'm not trying to discard him or anything. I just, I had never met him or spoke to him. So, but I know he had been there since day one. But
what you're saying matters, though, because it's not. I don't want to rip on our bigger city, but in our small community, we take this stuff very personal. If you hurt our children, especially when they're going to college and they're just in their own home, we all relate to that. I'm just going to bed at night, and that's when I get attacked. So yeah, I think the whole state of Idaho, I've tried to hope and encourage that we put our foot down and we don't make this the new normal. That we make this over the top to where the society's like, why is this family still going? Why are they still here? Well, it's because life and death. And this is something we can control, and we don't want this to become our new normal.
I think all the police officers were very, I just had never met him, but yes, he was there. And I see that in the,
they took weeks off.
But I did not know that he even existed until later. So, but I do feel that Anthony Dollinger.
None of those officers are ready for that. No, these are campus cops for the most. A lot of them are, which means a campus cop is you go in, your office is in the university.
They know these kids too.
Yeah, they see these kids.
Yeah.
That's their lives.
They had been there many times saying, you guys need to quiet down. I mean,
don't drink this weekend. Don't be idiot. Don't make me be the one to pull you over. We're out there. We're looking. You're trying to keep your community safe. You're not thinking about like this.
Right.
I was deeply affected though by the documentary watching Dollinger. It did. He really struck. It really hurt my heart. to see that he was so deeply affected by it.
And here's what doesn't make sense about that interview with Dollinger. Even this Netflix documentary, depending on when they started it, when they finished it, maybe it was because the gag order was in place, but all this evidence has dropped that doesn't even point to Koberger, and they still have Dollinger up there just 2 weeks ago spewing the same narrative. That none of these documents align, folks. I think two different things are happening. We're seeing one thing in court and we're seeing one thing on social media and media.
It did. I actually said something to somebody about it. I think Olivia, and I said, he really was affected. Like, I felt like he almost teared up at times. And I think, those officers had to go in there and see what they had to see. And, we heard very early on that they lost many of their officers, like early on, like, I can't come to work today, and we were like, what do you mean they're down 5 officers or whatever, some aren't coming to work. And then to see a grown man like that, a very strong, police chief.
Girl, you ain't seen nothing. Serve your United States military and go watch grown men come back like little boys from war. They ain't seen nothing.
Kind of get teary-eyed and say, that he basically is, needs therapy.
He did say that in the documentary.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I know with servicemen and women, PTSD is very real. I'm friends with a lot of people. It's real. That's not manufactured.
Yeah, I know.
And there's certain things that are so horrible and evil and traumatic. I think I read people pretty well, and I read him, and I'm like, this guy.
Yeah.
Part of my friend, he gave a shit.
Yes.
He cared. It affected him deeply.
Yes.
And he should get help, and he should be encouraged, and people should look at that as a sign of strength. And I think that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, and people always ask us if we went down and if we saw Kaylee.
No.
And we didn't. First of all, I don't think people understand like the kind of shock that you.
All the other parents were in the car running down there. What? I'm sorry. I don't want to get too spicy today, but I said we'd listen to a little bit of this interview. But if they are trying to loosh, if you don't know what that is, Google it, research all about it. They are trying to gain your emotional energy. Don't let them. And as I'm sitting here looking at Hannity's setup, he's got some Japanese swords right on his wall underneath the eagle. He has a sign that says freedom. He's got some other things in there that I've noticed. U.S. flag. I'm sure he supports veterans. We need to educate people. We need to help people understand that this looshing, the gig's up. We've got our armor on, folks. We are ready to play.
Go into you go into shock instantly. I believe that when that officer confirmed that night when he came to our house, and not only Kaylee but Maddie.
Why would they confirm Maddie passed away before telling Maddie's parents? Maddie's parent was on the way to tell you that Maddie was gone too, not your child. This doesn't make sense to me.
Was it at night? I thought we didn't know until noon the next day.
It happened on Sunday. So around 911 was called around noon, 11:58.
Right.
And then my niece called me around like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then we were like, what? And then it was around 5, but where we're at in Idaho, it was already dark. So it was around 5 when the officer came. And
it gets dark early because we're so far north. We're up there by Canada a couple hours.
It was already dark. I saw him, our front lights were on, and I saw him roll up in the driveway. And I said,
yeah, they hand you a business card.
There's an officer here.
They hand you a business card and basically tell you your kid's dead.
And
he even said, I've done this. This is the worst.
He just hands it to you and just says, if you got questions, this is where
he said tomorrow, call this detective tomorrow. And we said tomorrow. And
all the families then had to go down to the police station, and that's what they were told.
Yes.
Why didn't they get in their car and go down to Moscow? All the other families had. all the other families had. Even the Chapins drove the furthest, and they were down there. What was so special that they didn't feel that they needed to get in their car and go?
So some were going down. Some, the Laramie's, Maddie's mom and dad, they went down to the police station. We were all just kind of stuck there, and we were just trying to figure out because we just, I guess that we just
Look at him. Look at him. Reach over to her. You're stumbling your words. He's giving her a signal. She's getting all worked up. She's going to let the cat out of the bag. Come on, let it out. Let it rip. We need to hear this truth. Look at the prompts.
couldn't wrap
The
our
first room is where somebody was taken to the hospital, and we thought it was Maddie. So they were on their way to go see Maddie at the hospital.
Oh, ho, ho. Someone was taken to the hospital. Well, that's what the earlier reports were. All right, let's go back just a little bit. Let's go back.
Like, hang on, everybody keep their heads on. Let's try to figure this out. Let's not go racing, And we were calling the police department, and they were telling us nothing's going on at 1122 King Road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say.
But
hold on a
He
minute.
just hands it to you and just says, "If you got questions, this is where
Yeah,
how
he
you
said
contact."
tomorrow. Call this detective tomorrow, and we said tomorrow, and
all the families then had to go down to the police station, and that's what they were told.
Yes. So some were going down. Some, the Laramie's, Maddie's mom and dad, they went down to the police station. We were all just kind of stuck there, and we were just trying to figure out because we just, I guess that we just couldn't wrap
The
our
first room is where somebody was taken to the hospital, and we thought it was Maddie. So they were on their way to go see Maddie at the hospital.
The first rumor was someone said Maddie was taken to the hospital. That was the first rumor they heard.
There was a lot of rumors that didn't happen to be true.
We're just jumping in our car. We're like, hang on, everybody keep their heads on.
If they loved Maddie the way they say they would, they did, they probably would have jumped in the car too.
Let's try to figure this out. Let's not go racing, And we were calling the police department, and they were telling us nothing's going on at 1122 King Road.
What? The police told him nothing's going on?
I don't know what to say.
But all right, so there is a timeline, and we can go through some of it.
Yeah.
Because the kids went out. They went to, as every college kid does. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
Every college kid does.
Yeah.
They left the bar at 1:30. Not particularly late. They, stopped by. There's apparently the grub truck.
The grub truck.
Grub truck. And you can see them on tape. They're having fun. There's a videotape of it.
Yep.
There's one guy in that video that they thought might be a suspect, the guy with the hoodie.
Yep.
They eliminated him as a suspect very early on. They eliminated the guy that drove him home very early on.
Yep.
I mean, all of this is now you're trying to put this together.
Yes.
And it's taking a long time.
Yes.
And frustrating everybody. And, and so, but they got home, and the girls, or one of the girls, was on, I believe, TikTok at a little after 4 a.m.
Yep.
So
Sienna.
they were able to narrow this timeline
Yes.
to about 20 minutes.
Yes.
Within a 20-minute time frame, which, by the way, good policing.
Yep.
Very good.
So what really stunned me is the amount now the smoking gun evidence is the knife sheath that he bought
Yes.
and had his DNA on it.
Yes.
That's a slam dunk case. The second thing that makes this to me a slam dunk case, which is why I totally applaud you going forward, even though now you're going to have to relive this pain. I don't wish that on anybody, but I do want this guy to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
And I believe in it strongly, especially in this case. These were innocent children.
Yes.
And he targeted them and he stalked them. And why, I don't know. And hopefully we'll get some answers. Hopefully that won't give you closure. It won't make you wake up in the morning and think other thoughts. But why would anyone do this? I would want to know.
Yeah.
But so the kids come home. Then all of a sudden they go to bed. And what was strange is you looking for other evidence. They're looking for blood evidence. This guy got in his car, and then eventually, when they got the car, they didn't find a drop of blood in that car. Now, this tells me this guy was going to. And I want your take on all this. Was going to school to study all of this forensic science and criminology and all of this, and looking it up on the internet. We've discovered that too, to commit the perfect crime. And now, what is your take on that? Because he made the biggest F up you could make by leaving that sheet. Thank God he did.
Yes.
Then we have the videos of him driving once, driving through the neighborhood twice,
Circling
staking
around like
out
a
the
shark.
third time, and then finally parking.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And speeding away.
And then he ran into one of the other girls in the home Didn't kill her,
No.
but she saw him
Yes.
and then locked herself in the room.
Yeah.
She
All right.
plays
So why don't you give me your take on all of it? Because obviously you know more than I do. It's a lot of this is in the documentary, but it's frustrating to me.
So I will say this: people want to attack Dylan. Wake up.
She's the roommate.
Yeah,
That-
Dylan was a roommate that actually seen him. They kind of had eye contact. She shut her door. She protected herself, which totally any 19-year-old girl. This isn't Hollywood. She's not going to pull out some ninja moves and fight off some guy with a wielding knife. She protected herself, and she added massive value to our investigation. She gave a timeline. She said who he was. He was white, skinny, which, believe it or not, there's not a lot of skinny people anymore. So that eliminated like over 50% of the population. He was a male. She gave key moments. Plus, the timeline starts when he leaves at 4:21, and he turns and he takes off. He makes a huge mistake by turning his phone on at 4:48. When he turns his phone at 4:48, they can cross-correlate the last time he's on camera to where that phone is turned on and say, does this time match?
And it matches almost perfect.
The 27 minutes. So they found the road. They're like, boom, these are the only roads possible. Then when he goes back to the university, can we nail him on the way back with the time stamps that it would take for him to take a turn, and they nail him? They've got a signature, a pure pathway. Why they don't take this to court? I think it's just lazy fear prosecutors that aren't held to accountability. We just have to do it like they're elected official guys. And if they're not getting the job done, you should be able to tell them, I'm not going to vote for you. And when we told people to talk to Hitler and call him and say that, hey, reject.
Vote for you. Some judges are appointed. What? Do they know how our voting system works? I mean, not a lot of people know how some elected officials get in office. Yeah, they were watching some football player instead of going to
This plea deal, and he turned you into the police. If you're in Ada County, don't vote for that man. This man told you, if you call him
the judge,
Hitler, you call Hitler, you tell him your vote depends on if he's going to take this. And
do they understand how judges are appointed? Clearly not.
He's going to take his plea or deny it, and he turns you into the police. That man doesn't work for you. He doesn't think he works for you.
Well, you need to go back a little bit. So we were so infuriated about the plea deal.
Mhm.
People are saying, what can we do? What can we do? So we have a family page, a Gonzalez family page on Facebook. We said, call the court, call the judge. He's, it wasn't like we were privy to his information.
First, we talked to a lawyer.
Done deal.
Yeah, but the judge could have denied it.
We were told.
So we
You
said,
couldn't make him allocute because Idaho has a special law. I wish I knew it. I think it's 108, but I don't
No
know the exact
motive.
law. But there's a law that says they can keep the fifth. They can keep the fifth and plead quiet all the way through. So we couldn't force him to allocute, but he could reject the plea.
he could reject the plea.
Cállate, Mr. Steve. Stephen J. Hippler was appointed to the Idaho 4th Judicial District in 2013 by Governor Butch Otter. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. I bet these people don't even vote in their local elections. Okay. I'm just saying. Do you know how the election process works? Right? You go and you look up everybody on the ballot. You do your research. You vet people. You go to the hearings. You go to the county or city hearings. You show up. You be involved. You be part of your community. That's how you know how these people are elected. That just makes them look really alleged ignorant.
Let me go back though. I want to focus on this evidence. Before he makes the passes around the house, and he's speeding around, goes past the house, then he goes back, then he speeds again, goes back. I don't know what
Four times.
Then he stops.
Mhm.
Okay, we have that narrow time frame.
Yes.
Okay, he goes one way to get to the house, and as he's leaving, he turns off his cell phone so it doesn't get caught. So there's a certain amount of premeditation here, no
Yes.
doubt about it,
Yes.
right? Buying the knife, premeditation here, and then he takes a different route home, and then the time that he put it back on. Why is that important?
So I want to. So I think that I don't think he intentionally went into that house to kill four. I think he intended on killing one, and that is either Kayla or Maddie, because he went straight upstairs.
Why do you believe that?
Because he went straight upstairs for one, and I just
How did they know that?
He walks past one of the victims' doors right off the bat. He walks right past the victim.
This is the girl that locked herself
Yes.
in the room.
Walks right
Never
past
came back to her.
never went back to her. And then
But she saw him.
yes, and Kaylee and Maddie happened to be in the same bedroom, but upstairs is just two bedrooms and a bathroom.
And Ethan and
Xana were downstairs.
Yes.
So he went straight upstairs, and I think that he intended to kill Kaylee or Maddie, and Kaylee happened to be in bed with Maddie, and obviously she woke up and that happened. And then Xana woke up, or Xana was awake. Xana was awake. She did a TikTok at 4:12, or commented on TikTok at 4:12, got food.
Oh my God. Sometimes I feel like they're actors. They forget their lines and it's like, poop.
At 4:00. So, I mean, there was a lot of paths crossing here, at this point. And Xana heard, and I think Xana was like, what's going on? So I think Xana started up the stairs saying, hello, hey, what's going on? What's going on?
Dylan reports.
No, there is no proof that BK purchased a K-bar from Amazon. That wasn't even, it didn't even look like an order to me, in my humble opinion. And sadly, somebody from California was logged in his account. I don't know who lives in California. Does anybody know?
Somebody's screaming, somebody's here.
And then Dylan said, somebody screamed, someone's in the house. She swears that was Kaylee. Even the law enforcement believe that was Xana. She goes running down the stairs. So he's like,
I don't want to distract you, but the police are convinced in that documentary, so they're convinced she fought back hard.
Yes.
Oh, she did.
Hard.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
I mean, that was very clear. Okay, go ahead. I don't.
So he stopped what he was doing up there. He left that knife sheath. He was like, shit, I got it. I got to go eliminate this. There's somebody awake. Somebody's running.
He
Someone's
was distracted, ran down the steps.
So he went after Xana. I think he saw Ethan asleep in the bed. I think he just a couple times to Ethan and continued with Xana. This is a little tiny room.
A couple
it's
times?
probably
17 times? She really believes this? My God.
Okay, go ahead. I don't.
So he stopped what he was doing up there. He left that knife sheath. He was like, shit, I got it. I got to go eliminate this. There's
my
somebody
God.
awake. Somebody's running.
He
Someone's
was distracted, ran down the steps.
So he went after Xana. I think he saw Ethan asleep in the bed. I think he just a couple times to Ethan and continued with Xana.
Guys, I can't make this up. Oh my God, I have to clip that. Hold on. Oh my God. Oh my God. What is she on, allegedly? Because I want some.
This is a little tiny room. I mean, it's probably 2 of these pool tables there. I mean, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Xana's running all over this room. He's fighting her.
She's got quite an imagination. There is no way. I mean, I know they're probably paraphrasing, right? I got to clip this. I got to do what I got to do. Hold on a second.
So he's like,
I don't want to distract you, but
or Xana was awake. Xana was awake. She did a TikTok at 4:12.
Why do you believe that?
Because he went straight upstairs for one, and I just
He walks past one of the victims'
yeah,
doors right off the bat. He walks right past the victim.
This is the girl that locked herself
Yes.
in the room.
Mhm.
Walks right
Never
past
came back to her,
never went back
Never
for her.
went back.
And then
but she saw him.
yes,
Mhm.
and Kaylee and Maddie happened to be in the same bedroom, but upstairs is just 2 bedrooms and a bathroom.
And Ethan and
Xana were downstairs.
Yes.
Yes. So he went straight upstairs, and I think that he intended to kill Kaylee or Maddie, and Kaylee happened to be in bed with Maddie, and obviously she woke up and that happened. And then Xana woke up, or Xana was awake. Xana was awake. She did a TikTok at 4:12, or commented on TikTok at 4:12, got food at 4:00. So, I mean, there was a lot of paths crossing here, at this point. And Xana heard, and I think Xana was like, what's going on? So I think Xana started up the stairs saying, hello, hey, what's going on? What's going on?
Dylan reports,
And,
somebody's screaming, somebody's here.
And then Dylan said, somebody screamed, someone's in the house. She swears that was Kaylee. Even the law enforcement believe that was Xana. She goes running down the stairs. So he's like,
I don't want to distract you, but the police are convinced in that documentary, so they're convinced she fought back hard.
yes.
Oh, she did.
Hard.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
I mean, that was very clear. Okay, go ahead. I don't.
So he stopped what he was doing up there. He left that knife sheath. He was like, shit, I got it. I got to go eliminate this. There's somebody awake. Somebody's running.
He
Someone's
was distracted, ran down the steps.
So he went after Xana. I think he saw Ethan asleep in the bed. I think he just a couple times to Ethan and continued with Xana. This is a little tiny room. I mean, it's probably 2 of these pool tables there. I mean, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Xana's running all over this room. He's fighting her. She's screaming. The dog starts going crazy. At this point. I think at this point, finally, he overcomes Xana, and he's like, I have to get out of here. I think he felt like he'd been in the house forever. That dog was barking relentlessly at that time. He starts to leave. He makes eye contact with Dylan. He's probably like, oh my gosh, there's someone but he says, I got to go.
Dog's still barking, and he just made a decision.
So he jumped in that car.
Fight or flight.
And he was like, there's no way 911 hasn't been called. I think that he figured there's no way at all.
So he thought he had no. And by the way, on the video of his car leaving, he's bolting.
Yes.
He's going 100 miles.
He left a mark on the road, and he almost hits another car because he can't make that turn at that speed.
I can't go back the way I came. I have to go right through town. They're probably already, looking. So he headed some other way. He wound up getting himself lost out on a dirt road. Yep. That's where he was. He was on a dirt road, turned his phone back on, went to a map at 448, turned on a map app.
That tracked him right to where he is. You turn on your app and says, well, I don't know where I am. So tell me where I am until I can get home.
Pick that up.
So it nailed him right where he's at. So
they're like,
he's
that's
done.
exactly where he would have been
right
at that time.
Because you timed it out.
Mhm.
Right? So that,
out in the middle of nowhere, and he got lost. he got lost because he was
farmland out there,
you know,
just tall
For a guy
grass.
that's trying to premeditate the perfect crime.
Yeah.
You know, and clean blood. I mean, there was a lot of thought that went into this, and I think a
lot.
lot of study.
A lot.
The level of premeditation, I think, is severe. I don't
Yes.
think I can think of a case like this.
a lot.
So, but then the knife sheath,
Mhm.
which becomes that was it. Yeah.
I'm going to let your audience know something that I don't think anyone's talked about, which they told us at the very end. That knife sheet didn't just have one source. They were going to have an expert that came on and said that thumb, the print, had multiple touch points on it, and they can age the skin cells. So they were going to say there was fresh fingerprint type, and then.
Oh my God, you're kidding me, right? We have seen the experts. We have seen the witness list. Who was going to testify to this? I don't even think this is possible. Does anybody think this is possible?
There was aged ones. There was some that had been dated. So they're going to say that whoever did this, one person's DNA had touched this button multiple times on multiple days, at least 24 hours apart, because this is how we age these cells. These cells start dehydrating, and they were going to show that person had touched it multiple times. It wasn't like the cops walked over and said, "Hey, can you touch this pen?" And then they pick a pen and go throw it in the crime scene and say, "Hannity was there. He did it." No, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
They had this down.
And it also had Maddie and Kaylee's blood on it. And people think it was planted, but when that knife is not there, there's a void in the blood splatter.
It was
on
aspirated.
So
the blood was
clearly
aspirated.
It was there during, like he said, that's where he set it down. He set it down there. And
What about the white and black residue on the knife sheath? What about that? Where did that come from? What kind of weapon did that come from?
he left it there.
Wow.
And,
there's little droplets. When you lose blood under pressure, it comes out like aerosol.
but things went awry for him. I definitely think things went awry for him. I mean, obviously he left that sheath. I think it's because of Xana, and I feel horrible that Xana had to die that way. But
other injuries that indicated a fierce fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, very.
What
I
a tough
mean,
kid.
yeah. She was on her feet to the very end, fighting him with,
He's a big guy. I mean, this is kind of a safe college town. This is not
Oh my gosh,
a
yes.
huge, massive,
I mean, you would go to this little town and be like, this is the most adorable little place ever. And beautiful college in the middle and cute little
the last
town.
homicide was like 8 years before, and it was a domestic violence type thing. And then you had to go like 14 years before you had some type of random type crime like this. So there was a real reason for people to feel safe there, and they still feel safe there. If you went there, there's still going to be people partying, passing out on the road, and nobody's taking advantage of them. It's still a safe town. We're not trying to take that away from them.
Yeah.
But something like this smacks you. And to Idaho's, like, this guy wasn't one of us. He wasn't a citizen here. We didn't raise this monster. He was raised somewhere else.
Here we go.
So let me ask this question, because let's go to the timeline. 1:30, they leave the bar. They're at the grub truck. We narrowed down the time that this guy, we have the surveillance video of his car going back and forth 4 times. And then he's in there at the exact period of time where they have an estimated time of death. Okay, here's what I didn't really understand, because you had one girl alive, knew something horrible happened, was scared, saw a stranger in the house, had to have heard some noise. And I'm not blaming this young girl. I feel terrible for her too. She lost her friends. I'm sure that she feels horrible, and I don't want her to. I'm going to be I think this is so traumatic for any kid.
All right, we have to do this. Here at Phoenix Talks, we are live on the fly, and I'm going to share with you the documents that clearly says that knife sheath, okay, when it went into custody. This is the 2,356 page biology analysis notes of the knife sheath, the K-bar knife sheath. It was opened by forensic scientist Tina Wathel. Tan leather K-bar knife sheath. Logo, strap, button, sleeves, rivets, all the stuff. And right here, light brown transfer stains, okay? They used it. It was consumptive. All consumptive. Bingo. There was also, I observed, white residue on it. So obviously there was blood and some white residue. Y'all, if you've not taken a look at the actual crime scene photos, go to the room. Go watch my video entitled Maddie's Room. Go and look. These are the crime scene photos they have redacted. Go and look at the wall splatter. These are not blood. This is not blood, folks. These are holes in the wall. Okay? These allegedly bullet holes. Go and look at the pattern of the wall. Okay? You have to pay attention here. Go and look at all the wall. all the wall drywall that they removed from Maddie's room. Go look at the sheets that look like somebody was drug up on the bed, right? Go look at the walls. Go look at the ballistic marks. Go look at the measurements. Go look at the ceiling. Go look at the outside of the wall. These are not, a lot of people are going to look away and they're going to say, oh, look at all that blood splatter. No, guys. Look at some of these holes in the freaking wall that look like a bird shot. Okay? You have to know what you're looking at. Go and look at the crime scene photos that I shared that show you the outside of this. Look at the wall, guys. How could, that's perfectly round. Look at this. It looks like it was a freaking shootout in there. You can go look at the floor. All the drywall on the floor. Okay? And some of these might be graphic. I have to just give you a warning. Somebody pulled a body on top of the sheet. Just like I think they pulled Ethan up on top of that bed too. And why was a mattress missing? Look at all the freaking residue that was left from the drywall on the floor. These are the redacted photos they released and then took back. All this drywall was cut out. All of it. Round, perfect holes. Can't make this up, folks. Can't make it up. If you haven't seen the video over on TikTok, go over there. If you're not on it, I'll show you myself. You have to pay attention here. We're looking at all the facts, all the evidence. We're looking at everything here. We're reading the court documents. We're looking at the experts that say they're coming in and their expertise is, what is it again? Oh, we're going to talk about officer shootings. For some reason, it's not loading. I'll get back to that later. But I'm just saying, pay attention, because we are. There's a lot of people paying attention to this case. Not just me. A lot of people, folks.
She's scared to death, locks the door, probably just wants to put a pillow over her head and not want to hear anything at that point. Just my guess. So that's between 4:10 and 4:05 and 4:25 in the morning. And they don't discover this happened until afternoon?
Yeah.
And then they don't even tell you.
No, yeah. The 911 was called at 11:58. So they called.
But there were kids. If you look at the Netflix documentary, long before, kids knew something was up. They were texting your daughter. They were texting Maddie. They were texting all of them. And they weren't getting a normal response. So the kids moved in. Why aren't they answering? Something's up. Let me see what's up.
They learned, and this got to be fixed. They let the university know before anyone else, and then their phones go with an alert.
Well, the university put out an alert, which the cops wish they didn't put out.
Yeah.
And then those kids start crying in front of the cops saying, you don't need to tell me anymore. The university just told me.
Yeah.
Before anyone's tried to contact us, talk to parents.
They should have coordinated with the police.
Yeah, and I'm not here to say there's a perfect way to do this. It's just, we got it.
Who told the university that put out that alert? Who told that? Who told them that?
These are like little notes that,
Yeah.
It is, that is a question that we have as well. Why wasn't 911 called sooner? We don't know. We can't say because we weren't in those shoes. Like, I hate when people try to say, if I was Stephen Christie, I wouldn't have done this. I would have done this. I would have said this. I would have said that. I wouldn't have done that.
This is the girl that ran into him, saw him.
Yes. Like, so what people say.
I think that's judgmental. And you know what? You and I are grown men. I loved your comments. They picked the wrong family. Yeah. I loved when you said that during sentencing.
Yeah.
And then when you murdered my daughter, you didn't just take a life, you shattered others. I mean, those are words that I could hear coming out of my mouth. And I applaud you for it. You attacked what you could never be. Well, that's a very powerful remark that you made. And in doing so, you left a trail of devastation far behind that house. You stole my peace. You steered my altered my every waking moment, every sleepless night, the way I view the world, people, safety, trust. I've been changed by your cruelty. You made that comment. I mean, both of you, I don't know, I give you a lot of credit and you're not giving up. And, but with all this evidence, which is why I keep going back to the timeline, keep going back that we have an eyewitness in this,
yes,
and she's identified him, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you have the forensics, then you have the videos. Okay. It seems like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know why they didn't go forward with it in the first place.
One of my things, when we had a call with the prosecutor's office after they did the plea, which was on that Monday, I was screaming like at the top of my lungs. I was like, Bill, I don't understand. We have it, we had all the evidence. Why just package him up a gift? You gave him a gift. Why did you give him a gift for no reason? Like, you think and at this time we had no idea what had happened to the other kids. I mean, we knew they had all been stabbed to death, and we barely knew what had happened.
But the other kids knew before. Nobody had gone to look, even though all this had happened, and then all the friends are missing it. Really found out from the people outside the house, that were. I mean, clearly your daughter Maddie, that whole group, Ethan, the whole group is all very popular, right?
Yeah.
By the way, one other bizarre thing: why did they knock the house down? What the hell was that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a huge voting block right there. You got to be careful who you're going to mess with. That town's got 10,000 people. Guess how many people in that university? 25, and they get the vote out. Get the vote out. Well, that vote's 25,000 people. So if you want to stand up against that university, good luck.
Yeah, we fought that too. We fought that.
At some point, they may, there's always a chance that at some point there might be some technology that might be able to come up. I mean, the things now, I'm friends with the FBI director. I was friends with the deputy FBI director, Cash Patel, and Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino's been on this podcast, and so is Cash. And, there's so much stuff that they have available.
Yeah. So it was confirmed in the autopsies that he only had socks on. So why does a man, well, you guys want to say they're kids, not until 26 the brain's fully developed. Why is an individual naked in bed with socks on? I didn't even think about this other day until I read a book in Framed, is that they stripped this guy down all the way down to his socks. There was a forensic hair on Ethan's socks, and I read that to you, and it said it matched his own hair. However, it said that in the book that they had stripped this guy down, not Ethan, another story, another real life exoneration story. They had stripped this guy down to his socks, and they left him and staged him in a crime scene. And the first thing I thought about that was, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me, because something has got to give. Somebody had to have stripped him down out of his clothes and placed him there at the staged crime scene. This whole thing was staged, alleged.
And you two remind me a little bit of two people that I've gotten to know over the years, and this is a compliment in both cases. One is John Walsh. He did America's Most Wanted.
Yes.
After what happened to his son Adam.
Mm-hmm.
The other is a very dear friend, Nancy Grace.
Love Nancy.
Do you know her story?
She's on our board.
19, fiance killed.
Yep.
She shrunk to 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Devastated. She waited decades before she got married and had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's probably sending her kids off to
Yeah.
Good for her. Got her power back.
But when she talks about crime, this is not manufactured.
Mm-mm.
She even yelled at me on my own show one time.
Doesn't surprise me.
I said, why am I losing hope? It was about the Savannah Guthrie case at the time. She goes, Sean, who said this is going to be? And she just ripped me on my own show. I'm like, thanks, Nancy. We are friends. I love you. And she's been on the podcast too. Hey, since 1879, there people have been more than a source of admire you both. But now he withdraws his plea. You were on my show that night. And okay, you prepared for all that?
Yeah. Yep. I if that's where this is going to take us, I do pray, and I always am asking God to open doors that need to be open and close doors that need to be closed. And sometimes, God, you're going to have to take my hand and drag me through that door, because sometimes I'm not going to know. So if this is what's happening, I feel this is a door that God is opening for some reason. And sometimes you don't always know that reason right now. We don't know why, we lost Kaylee the way we did.
Are they going to be happy if a jury does come back not guilty? Is anybody going to be happy? Is anybody going to be okay with that if a jury listens to all the truth, all the evidence that we've seen, and they say not guilty?
And I know that's not God's fault. I did for a long time. We fought. We still fight. But I feel this is God's will.
You said you fight with God?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I think he's going to win.
Oh yeah.
That's not a fight.
She's just a fight with me. She could just keep going.
No, I argue.
No, I'm not making light of it. But I mean, in other words, you are saying, I think very, very human emotion, which is why?
Yeah.
Why did I lose my daughter?
Yeah.
Why did this happen?
Why? Why didn't you stop it? Why couldn't you have done this or this? You're God.
Why do good things happen to bad people?
Yeah.
I mean, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah. So
I understand.
I feel that this God is looking out for us, and maybe this is because the first time around it was wrong, and this time around he's going to make sure it's done right. And that is the death penalty. In Idaho we have the firing squad now. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next week. But it's also the type of life that he lives in prison. death row is different
Wait a
than,
minute.
you know,
He's getting a PhD in prison.
I mean,
Seriously?
And vegan meals.
What?
And vegan meals.
well, 'cause he's
Oh,
vegan.
vegan meals.
Yeah, vegan. I mean,
I bet those are delicious.
these are the worst of our society, and we've gotten to the point where we think vegan meals is an acceptable part of punishment for murdering innocent people. I mean,
Well,
what's
in
wrong
prison,
with this?
you don't need a PhD.
No, it's a waste of our time and energy.
Waste of our time, our money, and I don't care. Rot in your prison cell
Mhm.
until your number comes up.
So the softness that we have in courtrooms, and I'll tell you, man, I've sat at a table like that with another prosecutor and got so involved in a conversation they just walked off and left.
Yeah.
I said, if you're going to defend what happened to my kid, get out of here. I'm done.
I might have to hire security for you because you remind me too much of myself. You're going to be the person that gets up and pounds the shit.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I don't mean that. I feel the same emotion as you would.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do. I mean, to the extent that anyone could ever, you always try to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Exactly.
And
Why don't they put this much energy into finding who really did this? You guys, why are they going along with this narrative? We have truly stepped into the twilight zone.
I would be raging.
Oh, yeah.
I would be angry.
I'm 5'1", and I feel like I feel that I have so much rage in me for what he did. I feel that I could rip him apart, which is obviously not. I mean, you know, he's a grown man.
Actually, you never.
But I
I
feel
trained
for the eyes.
15 years. I can teach you.
Go for the eyes and the neck.
Just let
What I
me in the room with him. Let me in the room. Just let me at him. Like, I just think I have so much rage about, you know, and some of the injuries that Kaylee have.
And these two would go on national TV or social media and say, you know, something bad, something bad happens to him. And they say all this stuff. And then they say, let me at him. So do you think two wrongs make a right if they think that, what if they harmed an innocent person? Smart.
Had
It's bully type behavior.
just,
We never found the murder weapon either.
No.
you know, it's so
We're working on that.
over excessive. We are.
We're working on that.
We
This
are.
is the family that doesn't quit. Our prosecutor might have quit, and I would love to make him look like a fool. So if we can find this, I will.
So why didn't they go drudge and use metal? I told you, magnet fishing. Why don't they go drudge the whatever they think he went and threw it in and go find it?
Make that man look like a fool.
Well, it has to be along that path somewhere.
Yes.
Mhm.
It has to be.
He doesn't want me to find it. He wants us all to go to bed and go to sleep.
We will make sure that, you
and
know,
make this
law
understood.
enforcement is there, but we are in connection with, I think, some really good people. And yeah, we wouldn't just be like, look what no, we would make sure
Yeah,
it's
this
done
is a
right.
false hope.
You know, but yeah,
You know, you're obviously religious and you have
Yeah.
God in your life and
Yes.
faith is important to you. And I love your just open honesty that you argue with God, because I think a lot of people would do the same thing in that situation. Why me, God? Why Kaylee? Et cetera. And, you know, I remember I was friends with Charlie Kirk. He's such a great kid.
Yeah.
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 And I remember that moment, I think it was at his memorial, because we say the Lord's Prayer, which I think is the most important prayer. You know, forgive us as we forgive others. Okay. You know, Jesus died on the cross. What do you say? Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. Okay. I believe all that. Well, it's the most important. My faith is the most important thing in my life. But then when Erica at the memorial said, I forgive you, I remember wondering what I would do if I would be in that space. I sense you want to be there. I don't know if you are, but I believe God will give you the strength for the time to get there. You know, you can talk. How do you think about that?
I do think about that a lot. And Steve and I think about that, talk about that a lot, because I'm like, you know, God wants, you know, according to the Bible, we need to forgive him, you know, like we need to forgive him. But Steve said he's never asked for forgiveness. He's never showed an ounce of remorse. He's claiming
He's never asked for forgive. Oh my God, you don't want me to preach or get spicy up in here. Oh my gosh. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. And you're commanded to forgive. Now she's going to make some excuse not to.
you know, that he
And you know what? This is a great segue into forgiving the writer who wrote the hit piece on me and threw their 2 cents into something they don't understand. It's a lack of education, a lack of knowledge. I'm telling you, folks, it's easy to forgive people when you're a forgiving person. I'm going to preach it.
because I'm like, you know, God wants, you know, according to the Bible, we need to forgive him, you know, like we need to forgive him. But Steve said he's never asked for forgiveness. He's never showed an ounce of remorse. He's claiming, you know, that he didn't do this. So what do we forgive him? You know, like I guess that's our way out of not forgiving him.
Wrestling with God.
Wrestling with it, kind of. But I talk to God a lot about that, and I say, you know, God, I know I'm supposed to forgive him, but how do I forgive him? Like, he did such horrible things. And my thing with what he did was so
You know why?
intentional for somebody to.
You know why they can't forgive him? Because they probably know he's innocent. Think about it, folks. If you know someone did something so heinous to your daughter and you know that God commands you to forgive, you forgive. Your salvation is at stake. You forgive.
Intentionally hurt your child, intentionally plan it. I mean, he planned this.
It was a fantasy.
And Keely wasn't even recognizable. He did so much damage to her face. And she struggled and she fought him. And I can only imagine what took place. I envision it. I envision what took place in that house that night. And I feel like he is a demon. I feel like he is like the devil himself. And am I supposed to forgive a demon? Am I supposed to forgive the devil? There is something very non-human about him. And I know that from my impact statement, looking at him, the way he looked at me. And I don't know if he's human at all.
You think maybe soulless?
He has no soul. Look at his eyes; they're black.
Wouldn't that be the case of anybody that can murder?
Right?
Where's your heart, your conscience, right and wrong,
Yeah,
soul?
and these beautiful girls.
His eyes are black because that is what the media has made him out to be. He has naturally blue eyes, folks. Let's tell the truth. Can we please just learn to speak truth? Not one tear. The whiny.
And to go in there, and he went in there, he parked that car, and he said to himself, he entered that house with intent to kill.
Clear. There's no ambiguity about that.
I am killing somebody, whether it was Kaylee, Maddie, whether it was all of them. He went in there to intentionally do that. And I'm struggling with forgiving that. And maybe one day I wake up and I feel it like it's here. I could forgive him. But and now this, where he comes out and says, my truth is in my honesty, or my honesty is in my truth, or something like that. I mean, I'm actually innocent. I'm just like, you were just so disgusting. Like, you put our families through enough. When does a person not say, I went in there and murdered their children?
So the gloves are about to come off. If anybody wants to entertain this appeal, if it goes, I will blast this case through the roof. I've always said you don't kill and murder people and get an NDR. You don't get this non-disclosure agreement when you murder people. And that's what this court tried to do to me. They tried to put a gag around my mouth and say that you can't talk about what happened to your family. So if they thought it was bad before, it'll be so much worse. So I hope that it just is, they do their thing and it's over and done with.
No.
They got the process. They should have this down, right? We shouldn't have to keep doing it 4 years later.
How is he supposed
rehashing this thing?
How are we supposed to get a fair trial now? I mean,
who's the professionals in the room?
When everybody knows the case, whether you watch the documentary or watch the news, who you listen to, who you don't listen to. I mean, everybody has their own thoughts. I mean, there's people that think that he was framed. There's people that think that he's innocent.
Please tell me you don't read a lot of the online crap.
Yeah,
he does, and it drives me crazy. She's in the bed next to me reading comments, and I'm just like, babe, stop wasting your brain cells.
As a friend, I'm just telling you, there are people, I call them, anonymous keyboard warriors in their parents' basement, in their underwear or naked, that have no life and just like to be mean and vicious and vile and hurt people. And
Sean Hannity, I'm a U.S. veteran, a naval veteran. I'm not in my mom's basement. I am not in my underwear. I am a freedom fighter, advocate. And I'll tell you, I would love to be able to talk with you about this case. Are there any knowledgeable... Yeah, Hannity, stop it. Stop it. Are there any knowledgeable people on this case caught up to the crime scene photos, the FBI reports, the forensic reports that I FOIA'd that came out? Anybody, seriously, at the level I'm at. Yeah, we're not in our underwear either. Yes, I go grocery shopping. Yes, I interact with my council members in my own place that I live. Yes, I vote. No, I don't watch his show ever. This is the first time.
You know what? If you don't believe me, just read comments about me. And they're not often good.
Yeah.
You know.
It's I've really taken a step back in the last like month and a half, though, and my life has definitely been better because it was just I just couldn't take it. I mean, I was like, I just can't take this. You know, all these people saying these things. You know, it's hurtful. But I did want to say something about the people ask us, and I read people wonder if we went and saw Kaylee, and no, we didn't. But
I didn't even want to ask you that question. I purposely did not.
Yeah, I just wanted to address it because it is a big question that people ask, and this isn't necessarily the reason why, but we were never asked like, do you want to come down and see her or anything like that?
They didn't ask us to identify her. It never even came up.
And
They have to ask. They have to ask for a parent to go do. Wait a minute. Didn't someone say, and I don't know if it's true, and I don't know how we would vet this, didn't someone say that Kaylee and Maddie did not have emergency contacts at the college on their documentation?
It never came up.
Never came up.
They had my daughter in another state, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, they took her to Spokane.
And I'm like, what's going on? And that town should have turned it over to the FBI because they had no purpose in place.
Well, they brought in the Idaho state people.
Yeah.
They outsourced their 911, which is all their cameras, all the things that wasn't even in their jurisdiction. So when they had this gag order, I'm like, how are you going to gag another state? And then their death certificate expert, they didn't have one.
The FBI early enough because a lot of people now have surveillance cameras or ringtone, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they kind of tape over each other after like 2 days or 3. You bring them in immediately, they're going to get everything.
Yes.
And time is of the essence.
Yes.
And every jurisdiction should know all of that. And it's very, very important. I am sorry from the bottom of my heart to both of you.
Thank you.
About what you have lived through, what you're now going to have to relive again. It breaks my heart for you and the other families as well. And everybody else involved. I hope and pray like both of you do. First of all, I admire your strength. You are fighters, and you might get what I think is justice. I pray that God helps your heart with that you don't struggle. That your conscience is at peace. I don't even know if I should ask Steve if he's going to forgive this guy because I think he might punch me. But you know what? Forgiveness, I think, helps us. I've learned in my life if I hold resentment and anger.
Yeah.
But this.
Yeah, because violence the answer, right?
Is a whole different level.
It is.
I've never had to forgive this. And I'll pray that God gives you both the peace about that and
appreciate that
outcome that you deserve. I can only say to this audience that is watching here, please, it's called Idaho Murders College.
Yeah, it's a waste of time, guys. Let me see. Do they have anything else good to say?
C3 nonprofit. Nobody.
Don't want to hear about that.
These help clear along with law enforcement and the lab.
That sounds rehearsed.
Just getting out of your way. You did the hard work. You deserve the credit. It's your case. We're just trying to help a family, and this is the one way we think we can.
Do you think you can forgive? I asked your wife.
So I've talked to God about this, and that's where he was like, well, at this point in time, Steve, he hasn't asked for forgiveness. He's still digging in. He's still poking your family. You still have to be the protector.
Ask for forgiveness. Seek forgiveness.
Eventually, he'll be dead, and then I'll probably be able to. But I don't want that darkness inside me. I have.
Oh God, he can't even see it. These people do not understand what forgiveness is and what it's for. Should probably look into it. I think we've heard enough of this. Now, there is a video that someone told me about. And is this the one that they're saying that Brian Koberger stalked Madison Mogen? Is this the one that Cy Ray basically says? Because then it says below, it's got Enton's video, and I don't see anything from 13 days. So the only one that I see is this one. And this is with Brian Enton.
And not having to confess. And I wonder if now, like, this whole trying to get an appeal is almost a way of him, like, feeling like he's in control again. Like he has some control over the process, if that makes any sense. And that's why I wonder, even if this fizzles out 6 months, a year from now, however long it takes, do we see him go quiet for a while? And then do we see him pop up again, trying to get control in some other way, whether that be releasing some little nuggets about what he did, about motive, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a control thing.
I think that's a sound understanding, and I think it's to be expected because, this is going to be a very, very spare existence.
Are these a couple of more people that haven't read the documents, haven't seen the FBI report, haven't seen... Doesn't Enton have somebody to go find? Isn't he still looking for Nancy Guthrie?
For him. And that will be maddening for a malignant narcissist, which is how he...
How did these people jump on these shows and not do any homework? How did they not do any freaking homework and get these shows, right? It's just wild. And let me just see what this one says. I don't see the interview. Wasn't it on News Nation with Cy Ray? And I admit, I didn't watch the whole thing. It was Cy Ray and Gonzalez. Let me just see. I know it was Cy Ray on News Nation. Wasn't it that one guy? Let me see. I'm trying to see where he divulged all this stuff. News Nation. It was just a couple of days ago, wasn't it? I mean, I think, well, it says 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? This one?
Guilty to murdering
This one on
University
News
of Idaho
Nation?
students and now wants to take it all back
And turn that into some kind of for-profit,
for Cy. Steve, you never done it. Thank you both for taking the time. I'm really just going to hand it off to you, Steve. I understand, respect Cy for standing by his work, but you say not everybody's doing that. I turn it to you for the question that you.
Tammy, I read this like it was. You made a comment earlier, and I just have to give you the goat, man.
You are the greatest of all time.
Okay, so you made a comment earlier that I almost spit my water out, and he's on TV. Clearly, he didn't do his homework, so I threw you in the drawing for this month. So, is this the one? If Susie is still around, is this the interview you're talking about? Because I want to listen to this. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I've got a few minutes before we got to go. I'm just waiting for somebody to show up. So let's listen.
Might have
to
for
this.
Yeah, well, Cy came out and stood by his work, stood by what his professional opinion was. He wasn't paid. There's a lot of people who were paid and then turned that into some kind of for-profit, enterprise. And I just wanted to respect somebody who stood by their work because I need more of that. I think a lot of courtrooms need more people to stand by what their expert testimony is. And these gag orders are kind of cloaking devices to keep people from actually being responsible for their so-called expert witness testimony. So there's not a lot of opportunities I get to speak to an expert, to somebody who's actually seen the data that is related to my daughter's death. And I don't take that lightly. And Cy has daughters as well as I do. And I think his heart's in the right place. And I wanted to reach out and find out like these questions that I have that even the defense and the prosecutor, nobody wants to help me with. So if he's willing to like tell me, hey, how can you have cell tower dumps, the whole tower dump, and then his phone turns on at 4:48? How is that not? How do we not have timing records in there? How do we not have that? That's my main question for him.
Cy?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things to look at with that question. Number one, when his phone turns back on, there's no doubt the route that he took. There is no doubt the connections to the towers. I've been very concerned from the get-go of why we're not seeing that data. The map that's on the screen right now is a perfect example. That was a map that was used in all of the search warrants. Essentially, you will find that map right there repeating throughout every search warrant. It's wrong. And it's wrong in a number of disturbing ways. And when you actually take the data that's out there and you map it, I can tell you, Steve, there's no doubt where that device is when it turns back on. And it's not Thorny Creek Road. It's south of there. It's still on 95. It's still southbound. It does eventually pull off and it travels east and then west and then kind of back up to the north to come back into WSU. But we're talking 25-meter radius GPS pings, and they perfectly align with the roadway. When you measure the distances between them, the speeds are 100% appropriate. You can see the vehicle come to like a freeway intersection and it turns left, and the next one it turns right. It is turn by turn. There's absolutely no doubt. I've been saying from day one, they need to map all the data. They need to go get the data. They need to map the data. And I reserve the right to change my opinion until all of that data is put forth, because I think it tells a story. And I don't know how an expert prompts both the investigative side and the defense side of, hey, these are bottom line basic steps that need to be taken. If that was done, what would be found is the very next day, he mirrors that exact same route. He starts off in Pullman. He comes into Moscow. He drives down 95. He pulls onto the dirt road. He's in the exact same area that he drove the night before after immediately committing these crimes. And after he goes to that area, he drives straight to the Snake River just after dusk, getting into the darkness about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And why would somebody be driving to the Snake River on that path? It's concerning to me because we also see some activity that is indicative, in my opinion, of him looking at his navigation, specifically using his phone to get into a perfect area. The other thing is...
Okay, so now he's saying something totally different than what he said in his reports to the judge, which is mind-blowing. But now I've actually found the one that Susie has been screaming about, and I never have watched this one. So I'm curious to see. Somebody says that they drop a lot in this video. Hold on.
Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody for watching and everybody who has subscribed. This episode it's different than any episode I've ever done, and you're going to see why the format. And it might be different than anything I've ever done since I started being a journalist, and I'll explain that in a second. But I'm talking to one of the Bryan Kohberger defense experts. I worked for the Bryan Kohberger defense team when they were getting ready for the trial, when they thought there would be a trial. And his name is Cy Ray. He was an expert on the cell phone data, among other things. And he's going to, 2 bombshells in this episode, he's going to explain why he believes these things. First of all, based on the cell phone data, he believes that Bryan Kohberger was inside the house at 1122 King Road, the house where Kaylee, Xana.
What? I've never heard of this. I heard that allegedly. Now, wait a minute. Cy Ray has gone on and sat down with Brian Enton. And when was this interview done? Was this after he filed his PCR? July 3rd. Yep. Okay. All right. It's all about the timeline, folks.
Maddie and Ethan lived, that he was inside the house and possibly inside the living room before the murders, like on other days, that he had been in that house before, which I had never heard. He also, and he says he has the data to back that up. He also is going to explain why he believes that Maddie Mogen, was Bryan Kohberger's target. And again, he says that is based on evidence from cell phone data from Bryan Kohberger and also from the victim's cell phones. And he essentially tracked Bryan Kohberger and Madison Mogen to the same locations several times, he says, before the murders. Again, something I didn't know. So he's going to explain that. But when I said that this was a unique episode, it's because Steve Gonzalez, who is Kaylee Gonzalez's dad, Kaylee is one of the victims, and Kaylee's sister, Olivia, wanted to talk to Cy, who is one of the defense experts again. So it's kind of a unique situation. And they are going to do that in this podcast. And I'm really going to let them ask a lot of the questions that they have. And Cy agreed to do this because he wanted to answer their questions. And you'll see, he believes that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, but he has a lot of issues with the way the investigation was handled. So there's a lot to this. It's a long podcast, but it's filled with new information from an insider who was working on the case on the inside. And has really unique information and data to back it up that I hadn't heard before. So I'm going to get into all of it. Again, it's a long convo, but I think you guys will find it interesting, especially in light of everything going on with Bryan Kohberger now saying that he's innocent. So I want you guys to hear the whole thing in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates. Cy, it's nice to see you.
All right. Reminds me of this guy. This, here we go.
Okay, do either of you have any clumsy... Is everything around here? Knock out! Nothing left to break. Gonna have to start moving over to the arms. There you have it for injury collector.
Injury collectors.
Steve, thank you for being here as always. And I know Olivia's going to join us in a little bit. She's dealing with the baby. But I wanted to continue this conversation from the time you just had on News Nation. And I know, Steve, that you and Olivia wanted an opportunity to be able to talk to Cy about some of the information that he has since he was a defense witness for Bryan Kohberger. I just wanted to ask one question before I throw it over to Steve, though, and it kind of plays off some of what you said on News Nation, Cy. You talked about Bryan Kohberger potentially being at the house before. Can you elaborate on that a little more? I mean, are you able to, and I know it's not exact, but are you able to say whether he was actually inside the house?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be a little bit more responsive on these questions and drag it out a little bit. So if I'm going on and on, stop me.
Yeah, you can do that on this. We have unlimited time, so feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, and 100%, like, I'll make myself available to the family, by the way, 24/7. Like, if you guys have follow-up questions going forward, by all means. When I heard that you guys wanted to have this conversation, I actually, it meant a lot to me. And I was like, oh, finally, I can talk to the victim's family, because I spent my entire career advocating for victims' families. I've done a lot of stuff with parents of murdered children. And, this is a very hard place that it started out trying to be at. And I really appreciate you guys reaching out. And anytime you have questions, I'll give you my direct number, by all means. Feel free. You guys can hit me up anytime. Thank you. But what I want to cover on that piece is, when we start looking at the house itself, there's a couple different things we can look at. AT&T has a very specific report, and it's called LOCDBOR. And I know it sounds like a silly word. It's LOCDBOR, LOCDBOR. It's Location Database of Record. This will include estimated latitude and longitudes, and they range from 25 meters out to 3,000, 30,000 meters, so they can get very big. Historically, there's accuracy issues with this report. So if you just take all the data and you throw it on the map and you think that's accurate, you're going to have a lot of problems. A really good example in this case is there's a time when Brian goes up to Seattle, and one of his LOCDBOR hits shows him in New Orleans. So that gives you an idea of the accuracy issues. There's 2 factors. And like I said, I'm going to pile on a lot of data for you guys. The next thing that comes into play is the actual handset, the phone itself. iPhone actually restricts a lot of third-party apps and even the mobile carrier to some points of getting precise location data, which a lot of people don't realize. If I try to ping a phone, that phone ping can actually be screwed up by Apple itself. To instead of getting this nice, neat little GPS, I get this 5,000 meter GPS range. And you can be anywhere in that 5,000 meters. Samsung, on the other hand, is a very chatty phone. It's preloaded with all kinds of silly apps and ridiculous monitoring. If anybody's ever had a Samsung, when you first power that thing up, like there's 100 apps on that thing. It's good for law enforcement because when we get a phone that's a Samsung phone, it's typically very chatty on the network. We're going to see a lot more connectivity. Samsung's also unique that if I do certain things with certain apps that require location data, such as GPS or navigation, that accuracy from the 3,000 or the 5,000 meter ranges come down to 25 meters. And in this particular case, if you look at those precise measurements, there's probably 5 that land directly on what would be the living room of the house. Like the latitude, longitude is the physical house itself. And, if you put the house back on the map and you map those, the hits are inside the house. Now,
I'm going to let you keep explaining. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So, and because I haven't heard this before. So you're saying based on the data you saw, the latitude, longitude for Brian Koberger's Samsung was in the living room?
The AT&T derived latitude, longitude from the AT&T's network that it estimates a location, it lands in the house. And it's a 25 meter range. So, we're talking 75 feet. So it could be anywhere in the house on any floor. It could technically be outside the house. It could be on the property, but it's showing in the immediate area. My personal opinion is when I look at those and I map what's happening before and after, and I'm looking at all the other evidence, I think these are accurate locations. That's, and to Steve's point earlier, this is why court, I think, is so critical for this case. That's an argument to be had in front of the jury where the defense would come in and say, hey, you can't reliably say this. And the prosecution would say, here's why. When done right, I feel that they're reliable.
So when you say accurate locations, you mean you believe, based on your expertise, that he was inside the house on previous occasions?
So I'll qualify a handful of things tonight. And again, Steve, any questions that later on, by all means, hit me up. I'm more than happy to pour over anything you want to. One of the things the defense did with me early on in this case is they got outside of the geolocation data and they said, hey, as a former homicide cop, as a homicide sergeant, as a supervisor that supervises these type of investigations, we're interested in anything you can find. And they poured tons of data over. Why that's important too is it's not just the phone stuff. There's a lot of stuff inside the crime scene and things that I reviewed in the crime scene. I 100% believe that the offender, who is Brian Koberger, like there's no alternative theory in my head at this point. He's been in the house before. I think there's absolutely no doubt he was familiar with the basic layout of the house. I'm not saying he was intimately familiar with the entire house, but he had a working knowledge of the house. The house is laid out very weird. I've been through the house. The path that was taken, what we see is what occurred in the house, and coming and going from the neighborhood, there's prior knowledge. There's no doubt in my mind that there's prior knowledge. So that also helps support some of this. One thing I want to kind of circle back to, Brian, and Steve, you'll find this in my report. And it took me weeks to get the defense to allow me to put this in my report. They didn't want me to put it in there. There are third-party databases that collect what is called MAID ID, so mobile advertiser ID. And you guys have all experienced this where you've searched for, I don't know, a pair of shoes. You've Googled a new pair of shoes you think you wanted, and then 2 days later, you're surfing the internet and some ads are popping up for those shoes. That's based on your mobile advertiser ID. It's a unique number, but there's third-party databases that collect that. And typically, when they're collecting that type of information, it gets a latitude, longitude stamp with a timestamp, so we can actually see. Law enforcement can access those databases. You have to search warrant. There's a process to go through. In my report, what you'll find is it's towards the very end of it. I actually lay out that, hey, there's more than reasonable suspicion here to believe that this phone has been inside the residence or very close to the residence on these dates. Typical criminal investigation, we would go look at these third-party databases, pull all the mobile advertiser ID data from those dates. Forget the 13th. His phone is off. We're never going to get his phone in or near the house on the 13th, and that's where all the focus is. But if we go back to pattern of life and we pull these other dates leading up to the crime, I feel incredibly confident that they're going to get precise GPS. Now I'm talking 3 meters, so now we're talking less than 10 feet at around and very close to the house on most occasions. The idea that I put this in my report and said, this is the kind of follow-up I would expect to have, and nobody ever, I fully expected as soon as I dropped that report that January, that by February, March, we were going to see discovery on this new data. They didn't even look at it. They didn't even bother with it. It's incredible.
If they looked at it, they wouldn't have understood it. We heard that in court when they were talking about a JSON file and how you can edit it and how like that was some kind of weird anomaly. It's like, that's what the file's for. That's what you use it for. I mean, it was very confusing to the audience, but the lack of knowledge inside that courtroom at certain times was very frustrating to me. And I mean, I wouldn't hire my own people. I would. Shadow Dragon, I've said it multiple times. They have OS lint. They were like, Steve, the same emails they're using in this court case are the same emails we're tracking back to your children. But we're not doing it for free. They weren't like a side. They're like, I think there was a 30K. Don't quote me on that, but that's what my mind wants to tell me. It was like 30K. And they said, we're not giving it up on a case this big. We keep doing, because we're highly in demand. We're not going to take a case this big and not get stiff with the payment. We're not making that our message. But they literally said, we can literally tell you that he's been connected to these people through his fingerprint of his emails and the things that he was doing online. It's a whole science that they have out there and touch points, and they put it all together. He was very confident. And he said they're refusing to give me any money. They want to do it for free. And to that point, the Cellbrite, the Barnharts ended up didn't have to do it, but they did it for free, just like Cyrus. So there was these decisions being made, not over the right decision. It was, I don't know what it was, but evidence was being missed in a case that the world was watching, and we can do better. We can learn from our mistakes, and we can do better. And that's why we're here right now.
And, Steve, if you think about it, let's push that price up to 50K. When you look at the amount of money that was spent on this investigation and bang for the buck, spend the 50K is probably the best thing you're going to spend on this case, because it's going to show that I think those concrete connections. I do have a question. I think you guys might be interested in this. I believe that the girls went to the A&W. There's a little A&W and a little store.
I know exactly. Yeah, right down the street.
I think this was a pretty routine thing that they hit on a regular basis. And I'm really curious to some of the background there. But one thing that I've always said is missing, and it's really bothered me. Has anybody ever approached you guys on what's called BICAP? Have you ever heard that word BICAP or It's basically a history of the victims to everything of where they shot. They were.
So I've got a question in regards to what Cy Ray just said. Because according to his signed affidavit in court, he basically says right here that Payne omits the last 6 minutes of connections detailed in the AT&T report. Corporal Payne has modified the records, providing a false timeline. The device is last seen traveling southeast, which is incorrect. Okay. And there's other questions about the phone number 8458. Whose number was this? Never confirmed. Okay. And Cy Ray he was never able to look at Kaylee's phone or Ethan's phone, because clearly in the beginning of his report, and everybody can go read these, they are at justiceforall.com. You can go up and look at the expert reports. Cy Ray says clearly he is only looking at Maddie and Xana's and Koberger's phones. Guys, I'm not making this up. It's there in black and white. It was given to the court. It was filed in January. This is the report that Cy Ray is talking about on this interview. This is current. This is current. This document was filed a year ago. Okay? Over a year ago, a year and a half ago. But he's saying that he only was able to review so much data in this report. So know what they're trying to pull over the wool on your eyes, right? Before you go and listen to what he's saying, make sure that it aligns exactly to what he's saying.
Pizza, where they order pizza. Has anybody ever approached you in this investigation to try to?
Closest we got to they were scared once I hired a lawyer. They just stopped talking to me, and my lawyer said they'll answer questions, but to the point of they're not going to be witnesses because they didn't want the gag order to fall over. I told my lawyer I want the ability to speak on behalf of my child. If anything comes to the point where they're going to put a gag on me, then they can't talk to me. And I had nothing to hide. It was just, you're not going to control me like an asset. I'm going to speak on my daughter's behalf, or I'm going to jail, one or the other. So yeah, we never got there. We got to the passwords. We got to usernames. They hit Olivia up. Olivia got into the cloud ID. Like Olivia hacked. It's fake. Like we know the passwords.
I knew my sister's password on her Apple device, but it was two-factor authentication. So it would send a code to her device, and they wouldn't. And still to this day, they've not handed over her phone because they say that they can't get into it. But regarding VICAP, and I apologize if I got that wrong. No, we've never ever heard that. We've never been familiar with that at all.
You would remember it's about almost 300 questions, and it's a deep dive.
Is this girl naked on the screen? Y'all, or is it a tan colored shirt she's wearing? Look at Brian Enton's face. Is he trying to use one eye to look? What is this? What in the hell is this? Am I the only one that noticed this, or did you guys? Let me remove these comments. Oh my God. Knock me out, you guys. Somebody saw it. The bare chest interview with Olivia. You have got to be kidding me. No, folks. You got to take them seriously.
And any information, and this has nothing to do with the gag order. There's no reason they wouldn't do that. The reason I'm asking is there's certain things that would come out in their pattern. Like, hey, if they ran to the convenience store, what convenience store would they run to? Is it kind of they met friends or everybody was going? Is there a place that they would converge? And we're getting back into the reliability of the GPS. So I don't want to get too far out of it saying I know this happened, but there are multiple times that the device, Koberger's device, is in the area of the house, and then it moves to parking lot of that AEW root beer. At the same time, multiple residents of the house go to the AEW root beer. So there's times where I can actually see that, and that to me, that's what we call a collision. It's one thing to have devices in a general area, but when we see the two devices track together to a point and then track back, that's incredibly telling. So the idea that nobody has come back to you guys and said, hey, let's talk about the AEW or some of the other friends it's just mind-blowing. So I can't agree with you enough. It needs to be changed. That's why I took this case. I'm hoping in any pain and trauma that I've caused you guys, I can't apologize. And for my sincerest respect and condolences on this thing. I couldn't imagine being in your guys' situation, having to go through this. And now it obviously coming full circle back. But at the same time, when I first looked at this case, my initial thought was this can never be the standard investigation that we see on cases like this. This can never be acceptable. Brian and I were talking before you guys jumped on. after the plea deal, I actually, against the defense, Anna was incredibly upset with me for doing this, but I've created 1 hour one day debrief that I'm going around the country for free, providing to law enforcement. And for you guys, hopefully this helps a little bit. We've had an incredible response from law enforcement. The service you guys got on this case, the average enforcement agency is appalled by. Since November, when I started teaching this course, we had 300 agencies throughout the United States attended. So it's resonating. We're getting a lot of endorsement of, yes, we need to change these things. But it's really interesting to look at that, just how much fell through the cracks on this case.
So I have a quick question, and I hope that it comes across the right way. So my question is separating the murders and the burglary from the stalking. And as we know, the state never picked up stalking charges, but the FBI currently still has an active investigation. Do you think that some of those things were not picked up by the state because of this separation? Or do you think that this would have been something that would not have driven a charge, or would not have been evidence of a charge that they were not actively pursuing?
I'm guessing, this is my opinion of things that I've seen. I'm happy sharing this opinion to whoever, but there's a lot that needs to be filled in for it to land where I say 100% this is what's happening. I'm about 90% here. They back themselves into a corner, into a no-win situation, because the problem the FBI has with stalking right now is they cannot prove stalking and the work product that they do. It'll never hold up in court. In fact, I don't think a federal prosecutor would even take the case. So that's why we haven't seen the FBI proceed with that. Does the FBI have information right now, or potentially the ability to go get information to prove that case? 100%. But the problem that
Can
they
you
have—
tell me what that would be?
well, it'd be that mobile advertiser ID. It would be mapping all of the AT&T records and looking at the pattern of life of Brian over 6 months, where we see these routine travel patterns. We can see where he's going, what he's doing, how long he's stagnating there. Understanding pattern of life is everything for this case. The problem the FBI has is, to make that stalking case, they're going to have to disclose or discover new evidence that never came out from the state of Idaho. And now you have these competing cases where you have a case that allegedly went through the entire process of discovery and never produced the evidence that's needed. And now for a federal case, all of a sudden say, oh, by the way, here's this other evidence. They painted themselves into a corner that they can't explain.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I feel like there's 2 discoveries, because I've actually heard everything that you've said already, that he was in that house, even waited in certain locations.
No, I don't think so. Remember, in the documents the other day, maybe they are separated, or I don't know. But remember, in the state, let me grab it. SOS. Remember, under the whatever the entity, hold on a minute. Let me do a business search. Y'all remember when we went through the Gonzalez family businesses, right? Underneath the business that they currently have, Olivia's name is changed. They changed this 3 or 4 times. Do you guys remember we went the business live dig at the end of that one? Do you guys remember this? Okay, here, hold on. Maybe a lot of people didn't see that. So she's on the board of this. Hold on, let me search. Registered agent contains. Her name is changed. Hold on. Oh, wait a minute. I wonder if they made it private. Hold on a minute. Oh, hold on. Something's not right. We just saw this the other day. You might have to go and watch. Hold on. It's not popping up now. Woohoo! Interesting. Oh, wow. Hold on a second. Yeah, for some reason it's not coming up now. Interesting. The only one that pops up is... Here's the only one that pops up, guys. That's very interesting. Her name is not on the document. So if you go over to, let me just pull this up. Thank God I screenshotted everything. Everything is recorded. Let me go to my channel. Wasn't it just the other day that we did a dig on the parents? Okay, so if you guys remember that live It's something about holy fireballs, the parents. At the end of that, we did a little live. Hold on a second. Something was prompted for us to go and look. What was that? We went through all of this. Hold on. Let me see. And let's see. Okay, so we went through, here is the stream. She made a comment that the car she felt like caused her murder. We went through those documents. We went through parents' documents. Was it at the end of this live, Caleb, that we went through this? They removed the drywall. Let's see. We talked about that. Went through that. Went through her interview. We looked at that. Shoot, was it this video? Or was it something else? Hold on a second. What video was that we went? Maybe it wasn't this one. Maybe it was a different one. Hold on. Which one was it? Was it Fireball Friday? Is that the one? Hold on, let me look. We looked through the documents. Hold on, let me see. I don't know. Was it this one? God, we've had so many of them. Ah, that cat. Gosh. Which one was it that we went through? Holy moly. I've looked through 2 already and I still don't see it. It was members. Oh, that's right. It was our members only. That was a wacky one, right? Which one was that? It wasn't the book club, was it? On the framed? No, I don't think so. I'll have to look it up again, but we've got it. We've got it on tape somewhere. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Was it on the exclusive book club? Maybe it was. Hold on a second. Let me look. I can show it here if it is. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'm going to have to find it. We looked it up, but her name is no longer as Stevenson. It was taken off. And she is listed as an officer of the Kaylee Jade Foundation. Murder Has a Name. So her and some other people, but I remember that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. It was absolutely wild. That was crazy. All right, let's finish listening to this.
For like extended periods of time of no movement. This wasn't the house that he stalked. There was like a loop that he was following, and there was a couple other places that he basically stood still for a certain amount of just telltale signs that this person wasn't shopping, and they cross-correlated to bank records and the ATMs and all that stuff. They had some stuff, the basic old school investigations they had down, but the technical was almost like they outsourced it to the FBI. And then when the FBI were like, we're not so sure that our discovery is your discovery or our investigation is your investigation, that there was these huge gaps in it. And when they went to go to make a case, it wasn't so clear. So as a father, I'm like, I'll fill in the gaps if I can, especially when it comes to technology. And it was an eye opener. It was so frustrating to sit there with a guy who looks like Santa Claus, who has his consciousness, his short-term memory on a piece of paper, and has no clue about technology, never will. And there's 4 lives in bounce. It's just scary.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, this is a big problem with the FBI. The FBI has a habit of coming in on these cases. And where the problem happens is the FBI has access to things they can't get into court properly. They can't lay the foundation the way that state courts require. But they still proceed. The IGG, I will tell you, the investigative genetic genealogy on this case is overlooked at how impactful it was. As soon as they made the decision to go with investigative genetic genealogy, this case was doomed from a ethical perspective. because they had to go outside policy, they had to hide things. And now once they got the hit, you can see it clear as day. The rest of the investigation is, how do we hide the IGG? Because we don't ever want to talk about the way that, for me as an old school investigator, that drives me crazy is Brian Koberger's vehicle and his name are sitting in a report that entire time. All they had to do is follow up and get a sample of his DNA. If they would have done that and stopped trying to rely or over rely on this technology of the IGG produced, I think this is a completely different case. But they crossed the line with IGG. They knew they crossed the line, and everything we see after that is nothing more than a smokescreen trying to hide what actually happened to identify him.
I'll go a step further and be careful with this. I wish my lawyer was here. The IGG was done in a scripted fashion of it works. We know how it does. They told me, the people that I've been around said, if we get it tossed out, it led to the dad. It never led to BK. And that's by design. It never goes to him. It goes to his father in the trash, established the law, and then we got a warrant and we got the cheek swab. We got it down. IGG is not going to ever be in court because it's a tip, and this is established standard, and we're not going to let a little podunk Moscow make court law or state law or any kind of law. This is never going to get into a courtroom because we have these established practices, and that is what it is. And, if you call a tip on a black SUV that you've seen that has some kind of explosives in it and something, and you want to give that tip, well, that doesn't go into court either. So I get where they're going with it, and the greater good. I'm just a dad trying to make sure that my daughter and the system gets better, but I do see some red flags, and I know we had the right guy, and we just made it all difficult for everyone. We just made it so difficult for everyone because nobody knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think it's difficult for people to grasp that we can stand behind his guilt, but not understand or agree with everything that the prosecution and state did.
Right.
And it makes it difficult for us to be put in a position where we are having to defend the state's case that we don't fully understand. And there's a lot of missing pieces for us. And that's the only way that we can justify his guilt. So it puts us in a difficult position of being like, man, you guys are really making us fight for your work that you did, that you yourself won't stand behind. That's a conversation that we have a lot as a family.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, Steve, with what you said, and I hate to put it in these terms, but it summarizes exactly what you said. The end result justifies the means, right? It doesn't matter how we get to him through IGG because we have all these bailout plans that we feel we can protect ourselves. Anytime law enforcement takes the idea or the process or the methodology that the end result can justify the means, we're in trouble. Because what happened with that is they created the situation, they realized how impactful it was now, and now the next 4 months of investigation is nothing more than trying to hide what they did at the beginning. And that's why we see the phone records were never analyzed, because they didn't need the phone records. The phone records for AT&T were nothing more than a smokescreen so that they could say, oh, look, we got this tip, we followed up on the phone, we found this, and oh, that led us over here. The phone records were never gathered as a true investigative tool because they already have the narrative written. And whatever aligned with that narrative because of IGG, they brought in, and anything that contradicted that narrative, they eliminated. A really good point on this is they committed in the first search warrant to Brian driving east on 270. Everything, and it repeats itself, on 50 different search warrants that he traveled east on 270. Brian Koberger was never on Highway 270 that night, ever. He took a route north of the airport. He actually crossed 95 north of Moscow, and then he dropped back down south on the.
Okay, I found it, guys. Here it is. So this is the Secretary of State filing, and this is all the changes that they've done. So here is view history. And you can actually see that the most recent one, articles of addendum. Let me open this up and I'll share it with you. So they have removed, it was right here, third name, Olivia Gonzalez. It was prior to that, I'll go back to this one before. This was articles of addendum. And they had her name. Oh, no, this isn't it. Let me get to the other one. Hold on. This one is the Articles of Incorporation 1125 is when they got her death certificate. They put this in and they signed her name as, they crossed it out, Olivia Gonzalez Stevenson. Okay. And then they changed it to Olivia Gonzalez. That is the director position for this case. I don't know. Is she staying with her mom and dad, or is she still in California? I mean, somebody asked if she was divorced. I don't know, but she's taken her name and changed it on this filing. So I'm curious. And that was as of last, let me see what the date is on this filing, just so you know. This was filed 11/22 of 25. That was last year. So I'm curious. I don't know. It's all public record.
East side of Moscow, and that's why he ends up on Indian Hills, is he actually came from the east. And he did that because he's smart enough to know about the cameras. What drove me crazy in this case is when you see him go back in. By the way, the reason he went south is he panicked. Dylan saw him. He saw Dylan. Reasonable minds would say 911 is being called. And you can see in the video when he leaves, he's leaving in a hurry. If he drives back that same route, he's driving towards where Moscow PD is responding from. He's going to.
Wait, what? She got arrested for what? Where? In Idaho? Hold on a second. Wait, stop the presses. Let me get up in here. What? I don't think this is the first time I've heard this, but I think, hold on a minute. Hold on one second. In California? If anything happened, it'd have to happen in California. Wow. That is crazy. Where are you getting this from? At the end of... Wow. I'm going to look into this a little bit more, but let's finish watching this because I want to get done with this interview. Geez, never a dull moment.
Go right back towards the police department. So he has to go down south. When you look at 6 months worth of his records, he doesn't have activity down south. He doesn't know 95 south of Moscow. So he gets about 12, 13 miles outside of Moscow, pulls over. There's a good gap there, which has always been a concern to me, where he sits there for probably 10 minutes. He powers his phone back on. He goes into navigation mode, and we see the route back.
It's crazy dark too. So the audience might not know what it's like out here in Idaho. You get out in that farm community, there's no lights. We don't have, it's dark as anything. Your headlights are all you have in high grass. So it gets, you're not prepared for that. You're not going to be able to figure out where you're going. And without a phone, if that's your primary source of navigation, you're driving around like an idiot, for a certain amount of time.
Well, then, like I said, we've got 6 months of records. I've got a mapping system. I can put everything in there and hit a play button. I can watch his phone 6 months going around the map. What you see that morning of him coming back to Pullman, you never see in the prior 5 months of records. That's the first time he's ever done that route. And then within 48 hours, he's doing the exact same route again. And that's the last time you'll see him do that. You give me the layest of lay jurors. I can connect the dots there to have them see exactly what's happening. And right after he completes that route, he goes down to Lewiston, right down to the Snake River. He's there for less than a minute or two, and then he's right back to Pullman. Like, what's happening? Of course we know what's happening. I'm guys on the frustration. My apologies. Like, you guys should never have been in that situation. This is an FBI issue, and I'll frame this piece. I don't put this out publicly very often. When the plea deal was reached, I contacted the FBI CAS team, and I actually told them, hey, I did a lot of the investigation here. I know what the cross-examination that you guys were going to be subjected to looks like. You name your place, I'll fly to you anywhere in the country, and I will give you the full debrief of what I saw on my side and how we can get better. They never returned my call. So, even reaching out saying, I'll give you as much insight from the defense perspective of this to be better prepared next time, they're just not interested. And the other thing that I will tell you guys just drove me crazy. Now that my report's out, your guys' last name is all over that report because I did an inventory. I put in, hey, here's what the phones were provided. And then I listed the phones by last names. The only last names in my report that were redacted are the FBI agents that worked on this case. So all of the victims' last names are in this report that went out to the public with the last 4 digits of their phone, but the FBI agents get their last name redacted? Like, what is that? That is insane.
It's been happening a lot. It's really...
If you off record, if you ever want to know about some of the worst, we'll let you know, but I won't propagate them here publicly.
I just want to go back for a second to something you said, Sai. So with the A&W, which is that gas station right down the road from the house. So you're saying you mapped his phone and also, was it the victim's phones at the same time there?
Correct. And there's movement where they're all in the area of the house before that. And then we see it pop up over by the A&W, but they're together. They're at least mapping, and they're mapping not the exact same lat longs. They're just slightly off, but they're within meters of each other, which is, for me, that's a tall tale sign that we're getting better accuracy, because sometimes the system will default if there's a problem with the system and everybody will get the same lat long ping for like a 5,000 meter radius, but all of the lat longs are identical. In this case, they're just slightly different. They're just a couple meters apart. And it's a pattern. It happens multiple times. There's also an incident, and it was the second, I'm going to screw these dates up, but I can give them to you guys later if it's important. It was the first weekend after school started. And I believe it was Kaylee and Maddie went to Pullman. And I believe there was some type of a sorority, maybe fraternity party. And it's in the apartment complex right next to Brian Koberger's apartment. And at one point, Brian Koberger's phone moves over to that apartment complex as well. And that's rare. He doesn't typically hang out in that complex. But this is all the way going back in August, that first weekend after school started, the phones intersect in Pullman.
Yeah, the prosecution was doing the exact same thing. They were trying to take his phone activity and cross-correlate it with the other people in the phone. They wanted to know who was in the house at a certain time because they wanted to plan the route to who was in there because they're trying to figure out who was the after. And Olivia could tell you the exact day that Kaylee moved in there. I think you said it was like May.
Yeah, into the King Road house. She did move in May.
Yeah, so other people speculated.
Okay, I can get these records. I'm going to pay for these records in California to get the history of this. We're going to vet this to see if it's true or rumor. I will pay for these records just so you guys know. Hopefully we'll get them back.
there was no one in the house, or only Maddie was in the house. We've never tried to play the blame game. We don't care about that. Who's to blame is BK, and we're holding him accountable. None of the victims. Like, another thing I appreciate you saying, no cleanup. We've really chased that down, because I mean, they're literally driving these young girls to the point of they don't have a life.
No cleanup? Okay, wait a minute. These forensics experts spray amido black. You know what amido black is. You spray it and magically prints appear, blood appears. So you're telling me there was no cleanup, but these experts had to spray amido black everywhere? You gotta be kidding.
Anymore. So you're not true crime anymore. You're speculation, Hollywood fan fiction crap. And I would love for true crime to get back on focus and say, how do we make the world a better place? How do we make sure that people are coming together to actually have less murders and mass murders every single year? That's something we should work towards, not this fan fiction stuff. I mean, so that's part of the reason why we're here today. This is why we've been so dedicated. This is why we made a charity. This is why we have Murder Has a Name. We're doing everything in these girls and these victims' names, Ethan as well, and make sure that the world's a better place. Really, it's just the world's a better place when this is said and done.
Yeah.
You said no cleanup, Si. I mean, right? That
he was.
Oh my God. I found the mugshot. You guys? Oh my God. This was when she was arrested? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, this is weird. Just kidding. Just kidding. I found the document. I have to pay for it. It'll probably be a few days, but just had to see who was paying attention here.
We're talking minutes. And, I'm limited on some of this information. There was some reenactments that I know were done. And the reenactments, this crime could clearly be carried out by a single individual, and it's 5 to 6 minutes. And if push ever came to shove and that had to be proven in court, I know there's video out there of the reenactments. Like, there is no doubt that this is a single offender. But on that point, I think what you guys are hitting at, it's frustrating to see is, Turvey wants to say that there's cleanup because of things that are absent. Basically there's things that are.
And y'all say I have no sense of humor.
Aren't in a bathroom, therefore it's indicative of cleanup. There's no evidence of what that bathroom looked like before or after. Like, if we start building a case on that type of speculation, Brian Koberger's going to walk, right? That's just absurd. And I felt a deep obligation to call Turvey out. And, I'm going to piece something together for you guys. And I've been on the fence if I should voice this, but I think it's the right thing to do. So if I get in trouble later on, so be it. Don't get caught up in what I believe is a very rehearsed scam that is happening right now. If you look at what's happened over the last 3 months, let me help you guys connect some dots. Brett Turvey gets with Whitcomb, who's another idiot. Like, the guy who's never investigated homicide is going to be the armchair quarterback that's going to change this thing, right? So Turvey and Whitcomb partner up. Turvey becomes very outspoken about this. And what does Ann Taylor do? She publicly reprimands him and issues the cease and desist. If you think about what Turvey's saying Brian Koberger is innocent, that this is a big conspiracy, that there's other people. I mean, he goes as far as saying Dylan is potentially how absolutely absurd. Yet Ann Taylor reprimands him from proclaiming BK's innocence. I come out with a book. I go around to law enforcement. Ann knows I told her I was going to go teach law enforcement. I have been very, very clear. I've always thought Brian Koberger is guilty. I think in 10 out of 10 courts in America convict this kid. Every single time we go to court, he gets convicted. The question is, does all the evidence come in because of some of the ways that the evidence was managed, which is a whole different conversation. But I am very outspoken that Brian Koberger is the guy. Why hasn't Ann issued a letter to me about breaching my NDA or all this stuff? I will argue any day of the week. What I'm saying is way more detrimental to the defense's case than what Brian Turvey said, or Brent Turvey. And she did the one with Turvey. If you guys look at the picture, and here's the critical dates, the Thursday before the plea deal, Ann says in open court, Your Honor, I can't effectively represent my client if I don't get the continuation. So you have the primary attorney on this case saying in open court, it's one of the last statements she made before the plea deal, I cannot effectively represent my client. Those are not small words for an attorney to say in open court. And then
I would have allowed him.
72 hours later, we have a plea deal. And the way the plea deal came down, the way you guys were notified is disgusting. I've never seen that in 30 years. Like that, there's all kinds of craziness going on there.
We just learned that his family was there at the plea deal. His family was there. So they learned before we did. That's the disrespect.
What are you getting at, though, Si? If you can just connect the pieces of what you're trying to say a little more.
We have the ineffective counsel claim. We have the plea deal gets worked out within 72 hours. Ann Taylor stays on as Koberger's attorney. Like this last year, she's the only person on the jail logs that was visiting him on a regular basis. He hasn't sought out new counsel. She's very much in his ear on a daily basis. We then see the Turvey Whitcomb book come out where, hey, there's all this conspiracy. Ann has to separate herself from that and says, oh, I don't agree with this. I'm going to reprimand you guys. Like, don't say these things. And now we see Brian drop. And I knew the appeal was coming. In my book that I sent to the publisher in February, which is a manual, it's not a Brian Koberger tell-all, I put it in the book. Like, the appeal is coming. There's no doubt about it.
You called it before it happened. And
what I'm convinced about is Turvey and Ann are together on this. Turvey and Ann are not at odds. Ann needed some new information because that's the only way an ineffective counsel gets any legs at all. They need something new to get spun up. They need it to be very well known. And now there has to be the separation where Anne is helping Brian, but not directly involved. And who takes that role is Turby. So Turby comes out, says all this nonsense. Brian writes his thing. The last missing piece, and mark my words, I think we're going to see it in the next 60 to 90 days. Anne will absolutely fall on her sword for BK. She is a true believer. She believes he's innocent. She has an unhealthy relationship with him. And I think we're going to see Anne come out in the next like 60 to 90 days, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the timeline. And she's going to eat the ineffective counsel. She's going to say, he's right. I missed it. I should have known about it. And
big break moment. I just looked at it with a new lens with this new thing. Yeah. I'm going to go even further. I'm going to let some stuff out of the bag. So I've talked to some authors, and so they actually have footage of BK boxing. He's an amateur boxer. They have a whole thing of him in the ring. 3 minutes, 162 punches. 160. That was going to be like, oh, he couldn't do 150 in 12 minutes. No, they have him in 3 minutes throwing blows of 162 times. So there was more than enough time. There was actually more time for you to go in and maneuver and do things, change clothes, whatever you did. There was time there, and they were going to show him physically doing it against another human being that was willing to fight him. And these people are sleeping in bed. They had a really good plan. Some parts they were going to execute really well. Other parts they didn't execute as well. But to anyone who thinks that somebody could go in there, they didn't have enough time, you don't know your facts. They were going to show you to your face.
So you think, Sai, right? I mean, you would know, I guess you were on the inside, that Ann Taylor actually believes he's innocent and has an unhealthy relationship with him?
I am concerned about the ongoing communication, the protection, just that, I don't know how else to explain it, almost as like a motherly instinct with Brian. To Steve's point, 100%, the Koberger family was way more involved on that plea deal than the victims' families ever were. I believe that there was conversations going from the jail in real time of this thing going down. There's no doubt about that. But and I've done a lot of these cases. I've done a lot of death penalty cases. It is very unusual for the defense attorney on the case, especially one who's technically a public defender, to stay involved and active with the defendant in prison visitations the year following a plea deal. That is incredibly rare. Like the case is done. No one is in contact with him. So the idea that it's all Ann and only Ann, and he hasn't obtained a new attorney for this appeal, to me is very telling. I think jail logs and jail calls would really expose a regular routine between Ann and Brian, that they're visiting and talking on a weekly, if not daily basis at times, which is weird. Yeah, that's unhealthy in my opinion. As a criminal defense attorney, you got to keep that line between your clients, right?
Yeah, I was told by insiders that it's a small community we live in that said she's purposely after you, Steve. She's watching your interviews, making us all watch it together and coming up with discovery based off your conversations. And once I learned that, that's what I started talking about Bluetooth. I started talking about other things and just put her on rabbit trails just to play chess with her. But
Okay.
I've heard some really unnatural things are going on in this case.
Is there evidence? I'll save Steve for a minute. On Olivia's cue.
Yeah, just like, hey, when he reached over to touch Christy's arm, don't tell him.
Is there? I'm just joking. Is there evidence, Sai, that we don't know about, that was never public?
I think there's definitely stuff that has been withheld and has still been withheld. I don't know how much it was conveyed to the victims' families, universally, not just Steve and Olivia, but across the board. There's some really disturbing things on his internet history that I don't know ever really came out that would be incredibly hard to just simply show and walk away from a jury not thinking of.
What, that he had a YouTube channel that's in the documents in MPD that has some physical content. Please, you're just trying to shame a man.
It's going to leave a big impact, especially on the case of this nature. I'm talking right now specifically his porn history. He's got a very disturbing porn history that I think really paints a picture.
And that's all non-consensual acts. And I also heard gay, male to male gay.
I would love to see all of their history. And then I would love to see Steve's. How about Steve's for the last 20 years? Is
that accurate?
I don't know on the gay stuff. And quite honestly, I don't mean this in the way it's going to sound. I'm not focused on the gay porn. For me,
I know what you're focused on.
For me, you hit it on the head, Olivia. The non-consensual, violent nature of the porn.
I was aware of terms drugged, raped, passed out, sleeping.
I would go more on.
Well, number one, they weren't drugged. Number two, they said there was no contact. And number three, they weren't sleeping. Doesn't sound like Brian Koberger's motive.
Incredibly violent sexual encounters. So not the sleeping or passed out, but very aware of what's happening and it being very, very violent, which is always a tough thing for a defense attorney to get through. That's something that's going to really tell a story about somebody's character. I think that there's stuff to still come out. I think you guys are going down the right road. I've quietly been watching, waiting for more to drop. I can tell you, for me, the location information and the pattern of life, it hasn't come out because I don't think they ever looked at it. And it is by far the most telling.
Y'all, oh my God, I have been live almost 4 hours. I could do this all day long. I have got to go. I need to make dinner. I need to spend time with my family. I will continue this tomorrow morning. and we'll get done early. So if you want to jump back on, I'll do a 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And yeah, they're trying to shame him. We know that. I talked about this before. I'm going to leave this right here where we're at, and we'll continue. If you guys have not seen this, I just dropped the link. You can head on over there and watch the rest of it. OMG. Turvey says that the G's are grotesque. I had to use their real pictures. Y'all be well. Have a great night. Thanks, my mod here. I'm not going to play any exit songs, so be well. Have a great night.